Once upon a time, there was a wonderful land where animals talked and magic was real. In this land, there was one special unicorn who lived in a tower in a shining city. She reads a lot of books, could do all sorts of magic, and was very, very clever. One day, the beautiful princess who ruled the wonderful land sent the special unicorn away. She told the special unicorn to go on a little town to make some friends so that she wouldn't be lonely. The special unicorn didn't like the town or the ponies in it at first, but after a great evil kidnapped the princess, she and 5 other special ponies set off to put right what evil had put wrong. Working together, they defeated the evil and rescued the princess and saved the day. Furthermore, the special unicorn realized that she had indeed made some friends and that they were the most wonderful friends any pony could ever ask for. Pinkie Pie didn't need an alarm clock. Her traditional clock kept her up to date with when she had to be up and ready to face the day and have some fun instead of lounging about like a sleepyhead. The life of a baker traditionally involved extremely early mornings. As an apprentice, Pinkie translated this to even earlier start as she proceeded the cakes downstairs each day to have a coffee waiting for them on the counter when they barely stumbled in. Neither cake had the heart to tell her that her coffee was bituminous dissolved in a stagnant water, and so every day proceeded this way. A bright and early worker was the one who baked her old Lord Land's worm or something like that. Except, however, for this morning. This morning there was no coffee on the counter when Mr. and Mrs. Cake stumbled in. There was no bright and cheery smile to greet them. No pony wagged sugar-pink hooves in pound and pumpkin cakes' faces, or blew raspberries on their fat little bellies to make them giggle. Pinkie? Cupcake tapped lightly on the bedroom door with a hoof. After a few moments she eased it open and peered around the edge. Typical mess greeted her. Pinkie, like most creative minds, arranged her life to be organized chaos so no pony she could ever understand. Pinkie Pie? The lump in her bed moved. Sunlight peeked through the curtains, which hadn't been thrown back to greet the dawn. Cup bit her lower lip in concern. "Oh dear," she murmured, and picked up her way through the debris. "Pinkie, sweetie, are you feeling okay?" The lump groaned. "Oh dear, sweetie, are you sick? Does your tummy feel icky?" Despite Pinkie's laudable ability to consume massive amounts of sweets, she had her limits even. More than likely a few candy wrappers were scattered around, many of which had not been there the last time Cupcake crossed the threshold. Ugh, no. The lump half turned towards her, but then flopped back into place like a beached whale trying to struggle back into the ocean. Bah. "Excuse me? Pinkie dear, you're gonna have to uncover your face so I can hear you." Cup advanced on the window and pushed back the curtains to let in some light. "My back hurts," Pinkie muttered as she extracted her head from their bedclothes. "And not like when my Pinkie sense is telling me the river is going to burst in its banks. It just hurts." She sounded listless and totally unlike herself. Usually Pinkie Pie was the last pony to be deflated by anything. She had faced her down tyrants, evil bug queens, and wild manticores, hydras, and dragons, all with a smile more durable than concentrate. The only thing Cup had ever seen her affect in her was something threatened their friendships. Pinkie valued her friends more than her own life and took her attributions to heart in a big way. It seemed preposterous that something like a sore back could rob her of the smile even Nightmare Moon couldn't snuff out. Cup laid a gentle hoof on Pinkie's forehead. You do feel like a bit warm, but that might be just the blankets. Do you feel well enough to sit up?" "I think so. My joints are a bit squiggly, and the light makes my eyes twitch, but not in a throwy-uppy way." Awkwardly, Pinkie reached behind, trying to scratch her back. Cup frowned. She has assumed a sore back meant something spinal. Evidently, she was wrong. "Turn onto your tummy, dear. Let me have a look. It could be a rash. Maybe you sat in some poison ivy when you helped Fluttershy count those bunnies yesterday. Or maybe you ate something that didn't agree with you. Vegetables, perhaps, unless food had sugar on it, or in it, or under it. Pinky wasn't interested. The only unsweeted things she voluntarily ate were the apples from Sweet Apple Acres. That was more having to do with pleasing Applejack than because she preferred them over cookies. Cup knew that while growing up, Pinky's life had lacked such sweetness in any form. It wasn't anything they had talked about much, but she and Carrot knew their apprentice's life had been especially happy before she came to Ponyville. In the beginning, when bouncing Pink Pony first arrived on the doorstep of Sugar Cube Corner, clutching an ad for a room to rent, the Cakes had tried to ask what prompted her to come to Ponyville. Pinky had mentioned a rock farm, something like that about rainbows and parties and a fresh start, but her answers had ranged from vague to so off topic it wasn't until the next day, when the paperwork already signed, that either of them realized that she had never actually answered the question. At some point, the why had ceased into matter. Pinky was like that. She inserted herself into your life so completely that even those who didn't like her didn't want to be without her. Cup wasn't sure whether it had been herself or Carrot who had first broached the idea of taking on an apprentice, or which of them had the run idea by Pinkie Pie as she clattered downstairs again back to look for a job. The who of it didn't matter either, and what mattered was the offer was made and Pinkie took up in place a Ponyville that seemed to have been accustomed to design for her. She lifted into the community so snugly that it stockpiled shocked ponies when they learned she wasn't originally from there. Pinkie turned away awkwardly onto her stomach. Cup leaned over her, pushing her sides bedcloths and clouds of pink mane just to get a better look. She sucked in a small, alarmed breath. "What?" Pinkie asked. "What is it?" She tried to lever herself up, but Cup pressed her back down. "I'm not sure. I think it might be a wart." "Warts?" Pinkie didn't screech, but she gave a reasonable Eblet, weak face smile. "I have yucky warts on my back?" Yes, well, maybe one." Cup paused. "A pretty big one. Oh dear." In truth, it only looked like a little wart that she had ever seen. For one thing, warts usually pushed up in the bare skin between the hairs, like the nubby little protrusion on Pinkie's upper back. Cup prodded it experimentally and acted like fur-covered jelly, quivering a little. Pinkie wriggled. "That feels weird." "Does it hurt?" A little." Pinkie wriggled some more, hooves flexing like she was desperately trying to scratch the wart thing. "Mostly it just feels weird. I think perhaps I should call the doctor and make an appointment for you." Cup back towards the door, resolving to wash her hooves before heading downstairs where they kept the phone. Pinkie pushed herself onto her forelegs so that her spine curled like a cat stretching after a nap. She looked like she was trying to work at the kinks out, except that silhouetted against the window like that, Cup thought the little lump looked even more noticeable. Rainbow Dash yawned on her cloud, arching for a delicious stretch. She immediately curled into a ball and grabbed a hoofful of white fluff and tugged it over herself like a blanket. Early shifts were her least favorite part of the weather patrol. While the other ponies were still in bed, she and her team were busting the sky in preparation for the day to come. It was especially bad in winter, when flashlights and reflective vests didn't still prevent all the mid-air collisions in the dark. Autumn wasn't too bad, but in a few weeks she would need to find her vest once more. Joy, Cloud Kicker, and Thunderlane had worked hard on planning the paperwork this week, only finishing half an hour before the deadline for the previous Friday. Their maps meticulously showed which clouds they were meant to be left alone, which they were cleared, and which needed buffing up for the light shower scheduled in 8 hours' time. Wingless ponies thought rain just happened. Pegasi dragged a few rain clouds across the sky and voila. But it was even more complicated than that. Rain clouds did occur naturally, yes, but even more often than they had it made to be. Regular clouds were selected, pushed into the correct place, seeded, and then left to gather moisture. You couldn't station them too high, or the air was too thin and dry. Push them too low, and they were likely to get busted by accident. Being in charge of the weather patterns meant long-term planning and precision, not just lazing around all day and sometimes kicking a clummus, as Rainbow Dash suspected her friends sometimes well fought. Well, except Twilight. When Twilight first realized that she would be staying in Ponyville, she tried to learn all she could about her friends' careers so that they had something to talk about. Unpracticed in friendship and terrified their only connection had been fighting Nightmare Moon, and she had crammed her head with as much knowledge on apple farming, weather control, baking, animal care, and dressmaking as possible. She hadn't even skipped sleep and meals until Spike told her that his friend's worries about what she was up to. Egghead, Rainbow Dash thought, an affectionate smile turning up her lips. A dark flicker at the edge of her vision made her open her eyes fully. What looked like a shadow shift on the neighboring cloud, though there was nothing up as this high to cast it. What was that? She rubbed her tired eyes, but didn't see it again. Curious, she replenished her extras as blankets and flew over for a better look. The cloud was one selected for rain, freshly seeded as part of the last batch she had stationed up here. At the moment, there was still pure white, although over the next 2 days it would darken and thicken as saturated with water. She was peering at it when some pony tapped her shoulder. Dash? Ah! She spun in place, hooves raised. Whoa! Blossom Forth held up her own hooves defensively. It's me! It's me! Rainbow Dash dropped her combative stance, rolling on her shoulders as if shrugging off her alarm that some pony was sneaking up on her. Not many flyers were active enough to shrug and hoover exactly in the place of time. It was still a small demonstration of her powers that gave her a chance to gather and reassure herself that it wasn't slipping. You've been taking ninja's lessons, Blossom? Blossom Forth wrinkled her nose at the nickname, but let it slide. I'm all done in Sector 2. Thunder Lane and Milky Way are just about finished too. What about Dizzy Twister? Rainbow Dash went through her mental Rolodex of who was rostered to be on the morning shift of her day. The weather team typically divided up into 2 pairs for rain cloud seeding, and Earhart. Blossom Forth covered her wince well. Maybe someday she would actually fool someone. They're just finishing up. Suspicion fretted through Rainbow Dash. Define finishing up? Blossom Forth sighed. They still half of their quota to seed. Rainbow Dash rolled her eyes, just when she was ready for a nap. Although, would you like to help me with them? Blossom Forth pierced her lips. I'll sign that vacation form you gave me. You said you were going to do that anyway. Yeah, but I'll do it today. Instead of procrastinating, Blossom Forth raised an eyebrow, and then give it back to me at the last minute too late for me to book a good hotel in time. Yeah? Blossom Forth lifted her goggles off her forehead and snapped them over her eyes. She almost managed to look like it didn't hurt. Her constant efforts to look cool in her form of her boss. They were enduring their own goofy way. Let's go! As the 2 Pegasi flew away, a small black line fizzed over the surface of the cloud. They bumped into each other, crisscrossing and knocking over a few of their number into the sky, where they wriggled through complete empty air to get back to the rest. After a few moments of hectic movement, they faded away until it was as if they had never been there at all. Dr. Horse scratched his chin as they surveyed his patient. He tilted his head so far to the left that it was almost horizontal, and then abruptly snapped it into right to the same. The pony on the stool before him squirmed so much that he practically vibrated. Please sit still, he murmured for the umpteenth time. Whoopsie doodle, she murmured, squirming her recede heard the manic fidgeting. So what do you think, Doc? Will I ever play piano again? I what? He shook his head against a ridiculous question. I'd like to run a few tests. Just not math. I'm awful at math. All those numbers make my brain go squidge. I'm pretty good at history, though. Want me to tell you how Equestria was made? Not that kind of test, he said gruffly. He was growing more irritated by the second, partly because his patient was so exasperating, but also because he couldn't immediately identify her alignment. It didn't quite meet the criteria for a wart, which irked him. The chills and aching joints that she had complained weren't typically warts either. He preferred a quick-fire diagnosis that knocked the queues in his waiting room down to a manageable size. His mood was inversely proportional, and the number of occupied seats outside the door. The more complicated case, the less he liked it. While his contemplatories were or wished for a break in the monotony of runny noses, coughs, horn rot, and wing strain, he longed for days of nothing but easily diagnosed tendom. This annoying pink pony presented her the conundrum. A conundrum meant spending more than time than he wanted to on her. So is it a wart? Miss Cake asked. It might be a wart, but warts are icky, sticky, ugly, fuggy, itchy, witchy things. It's not a wart, Dr. Horse said flatly. It might be a boil, but I could lance it if you want. A boil? She craned over her shoulder, her expression melodramatically horrified. Boils are even ickier than warts. A boil is nothing more than an overgrown pimple. They're often caused by infected hair follicles or ingrowing fur. Bacteria from the infection forms a pocket of pus, he sighed. The consistency of this lump indicates that it's filled with liquid, which is most likely pus. If this is the case, lacing it where a sterilized environment will prevent the infection, and I can put you on a course of antibiotics straight away to prevent further infection, which would resolve the problem immediately and send her away faster than a hoof on a poster. Except that there were also other symptoms, she had complained, that didn't tally up with a simple boil. Will it hurt? She asked, such a minor tremor that her voice nearly she missed it completely. I'm not a fan of hurty things, even worse than this hurty squirty thing. You may feel a pinch. I will numb the area first, and then cut a small opening on the top so the pus can drain out. Afterwards you'll feel much better. He considered his options. I think I'll put some gauze on the cut so it stays open and keeps draining until it's completely clear. There seems to be a lot in there. She nibbled her lower lip. Well, I guess you're the doctor, she brightened. Do I get a lollipop at the end if I'm a good little filly? The instant reaction was to say no, but he stopped himself from laughing. Sighing, he nodded. Yes, you may have a lollipop at the end. His movements were quick and professionate. She leaned forward on the stool as he took a tiny scalpel out of his protective plastic packet, designing to make sure everything stays sterile in the event, and he needed to use it. He swabbed the protrusion into the enchanted slave to numb the area more thoroughly than any antiseptic produced by medical science, though he was an earth pony. Dr. Horse had held both regular medicine and magic in equal esteem. For a moment he considered having the required portion of the patient's back, but then discarded the idea as redundant. Gauze and hoof, he was about to lancing the, for what a better word, boil, and then she screamed. She screamed so loud at such a high pitch that its foreleg jerked involuntarily. The tip of the scalpel dug deeper. Not a gouge, but certainly a wider incision than he intended. She screamed like she had tried to reach through the back of her ribcage and cut out her lungs. His eardrums felt like they were vibrating reflectively. He withdrew the blade in anticipation the expulsion of pus. Instead, a trickle of blood ran down her back. It was thick, so dark it appeared black in the harsh overhead lighting. I thought you said it wouldn't hurt much. Her breath came to a short, rapid gasps. It shouldn't. I numbed the area. The slave was as best as the market, produced by Encanterlon and foremost research of unicorns at the Royal University. But there was no way she would feel anything through its effects. No way. It hurts, she moaned, like burning. Dr. Horse made a snap decision, putting down his scalpel and snatching up the wad of cotton padding that he had prepared for her afterwards. He pressed it against the cut to stem the flow of blood. Then he thrust the gauze already into his hoof on top of it. This is bound down with several strips of medical tape, compressing the pastine white with a form of a plug. The patient groaned, despite the obvious pain. She reached behind with the forehoof and tried to prise off the wad. Too tight, she whimpered. It needs to be tight, he said briskly. This is not what he had expected. The fact that the lump was so sensitive even through the enchanted slave was startling. Its irritable desire for speedy consolations. The revelation made him stop and reconsider. This was beyond his ken. He needed a second opinion. Miss, he glanced at her notes. Miss Pye, I'm going to have to write a letter recommending that you see my colleague at Ponyville General Hospital. Hospital? She said weakly, still puffing out waves of pain emanating from her back. Just for a boil? Loath he was to admit it, Dr. Horse shook his head. I don't think it's a boil. Regular boils do not spit out black blood or resist an adhesive slave. But to his experience, the only things he could resist are metamagic were so magical in origin. He gritted his teeth. In point fact, I'm not sure what it is. Therefore, I'd like you to speak to my colleague. He trotted back to his desk and scrawled out something only for another doctor to be able to read this. Take this, go straight there. I'll telephone to let them know you're coming. So soon? She stared at the paper he gave her. Applejack has always waited ages and ages and ages and ages and ages for hospital appointments when her hip hurts from apple bucking so much. She says the Equestrian Health Service mows much slower than molasses running down a tree mid-weather. Now eloquent of her, Dr. Horse resisted the urge to say something desperate. He had been warned about this beside manner, and fought to make himself appearing, reassuring, pleasant to even his most annoying patients. So straight there, classified the pink mare, whose name had already been forgotten. She hadn't come in with a heavy-set pony. She could run back to her now instead of cluttering up his office. He nodded. Maybe stable would be able to give more hindsight to her condition. Straight there. Straight as an arrow there? Yes. Straight as the crows fly there? Yes. Straight as a poker there? Yes. Straight as... Yes! Dr. Horse interrupted. Straight there. Now, he added, in case she was unclear. She puffed out one more pained breath and hopped out of the stool. Okie dokie, all okay! Where the last syllable became a shriek. Her forelegs collapsed under her as she clearly fought against a fresh wave of pain. Oh gosh, I thought that going to the doctor's was meant to make me feel better. She gave a feeble giggle. Or this opposite day, and so everything. There has to be an opposite. An opposite day you're supposed to wear socks on your head and... She winced trying to get to all four hooves, and walk and to talk backwards. Dr. Horse surveyed her. Never mind the backwards, she was clearly walking nowhere. He pressed the intercom on the desk. Violet, can you send an ambulance carriage, please? Cupcake pressed the payphone to his ear. Yes, Carrot. The doctor is seeing her right now. The paramedics were very kind to let me ride even though I'm not technically family. Which in itself begged the question. Was there her family? Cup realized with a jolt that if anything happened to Pinkie Pie, neither she nor Carrot would let any of them know. Are you doing okay? Carrot asked with a late voice-laced concern. Oh, broken from her thoughts, she smiled to the receiver. I'm fine, honey bun. Warmth sufficed her. When the ambulance carriage turned up at the doctor's, and Pinkie was whisked inside with another stretcher, Cup had begged the ponies to pulling it to let her ride along. There hadn't been any time to let her husband know that this was going on until now, and she found herself waning confidence blustered merely by the sound of his voice. How are the twins? Oh, fine, fine, he said absently. I'm more concerned about you and Pinkie Pie right now. Well, I'm right as rain, so you don't have to worry about me, she hesitated. And Pinkie? Another hesitation. She's... Sweetheart, what's wrong with her? Cup sighed. They don't know. When she went to Dr. Horse's office, she was, well, you saw us leave this morning. She wasn't up for her usual pinkiness, but she was still cheerful and could only walk by herself. She can't walk? Panic wove through Carrot's tone. It was almost unbelievable. How important Pinkie had become to both of them in a few short years they had known her. Briefly, Cup wondered whether all those mentors felt all that way about her apprentices, Or all the landlords about their tenants? Probably not. So many things about Pinkie Pie were unique. Not something why like this too. It jars her back too much. The Dr. Horse tried to lance that warty boil thing, and apparently he made it worse. And so he hoofed her away to some pony else? Now, dear, don't be cynical. Kara let out a short breath. Are you going to call her friends, or do you want me to do it? They'll want to know. You know how close they all are. Yes, I know. Cup glanced at the long corridor behind her. Would you mind doing it? I think I'd like to be with Pinkie while the doctors look her over. Not that I don't trust Dr. Stable, well, but I trust Dr. Horse too. Now who's being cynical? Sure thing, Sweet Tums. I'll take care of it. She smiled. Do you know how much I love you? Not as much as I love you. Carrot blew a kiss down the phone. After over a decade of marriage, he could still make her blush, even long distance. Take care, Sweet Tums. Call me the minute you know what's going on, okay? I will. She promised and hanged up the phone. The bits she had inserted the slot scattered through its insides, and for a moment she stared at the thing. Despite her words, she was unwilling to turn around and go back to the little consolation room where Pinkie awaited the doctor's verdict. She had a sudden bad feeling and didn't think it was just because she had missed her morning coffee. Dr. Stable snapped protective plastic sleeves over her forehooves. Now then, let's take a look at what's under gauze number 1, shall we? Stretched out on the gurney, Pinkie Pie nodded. She had folded her forelegs under her chin so her nose wasn't pressed flush against the thin pillow. Her smile was so jaunty that it almost able to misdrawn the lines of pain around her eyes. The grand prize, she chirruped. Although it's 2 tickets to see the Wonderbolts, I called dibs. My friend Dashu would love to go see them. If it's icky, sticky, gunky gunk, you can have it, Doc. Dr. Stable smiled back at her. Although she was exhausting, he had liked Pinkie Pie when he first met her and had been concerned when the horse called to say that she was being rushed to Ponyville General. At least it looked like she was staying chipper, which was always a good sign. As ever, he had made a conversation and, as he worked, trying to put his patient at ease. How's Rainbow Dash these days? His smile became a smirk. Still trying to pretend she doesn't like reading? Pinkie Pie blew a tremendous raspberry. She's only not reading these days, she's writing. She wrote this really long story about a mare called Prism Power who joins the Wonderbolts and becomes their best flyer ever and dominates all their shows and becomes team leader. Even Spitfire loves her because she's so awesome and cool and fantastic, dazzling, and... Pinkie ran out of breath. She sucked in a lungful before continuing at the same breakneck pace. She found me reading it and got all weird shouty and took it from me before I could read even the end through. I told her it was really good story and that Prism Power was super awesome, and she locked away in the drawer and made a promise to Jimmy to open it and read the ending, which I thought it was mean, but I guess she was just embarrassed, which would explain why she hid it in the first place. She sucked in another lungful to carry on. Dr. Stable listened as he priced up the first piece of medical tape. Horse had gone overboard with the stuff as usual, and it took up a few pink hairs and peeled it free. Ouch! Pinkie shrieked. Sorry, Dr. Stable apologized. Just a couple more and I can see what's under here. Just don't pluck me bald, okay, Doc? I look really weird bald. Pinkie scrunched up her face, as if trying to imagine the sight. Like a naked mole rat with longer legs. I'm sure you wouldn't look that bad. 2 more pieces of the tape came free. There was something odd about the fur beneath. Dr. Stable frowned and priced up the rest. Bad? Pinkie echoed. Naked mole rats are cute? Ouch! Sorry, just one more bit of tape. Okie dokie Loki. She felt her tense up in anticipation for the pain. If I didn't have Gummy, I'd totally get a naked mole rat as a pet. Ah! There's a brave... Dr. Stable removed the wad of gauze and paddling. Girl. Doc? Hey, Doc, what is it? Pinkie struggled to rise, grunted in pain, and flopped back down. Dr. Stable? Doctor? Said a voice come from the doorway. Miss Cake! Pinkie cried in delight, energy returning to her voice. How's Mr. Cake and the twins? Are they okay? Did you apologize for them for me not making their morning belly raspberries and tell them I'll do double tomorrow? Pound and pumpkin? I mean, not Mr. Cake. Blowing raspberries on Mr. Cake's belly would be weird. Well, for me to do anyway. I guess it'd be okay if you blew raspberries on his belly. They're fine, Pinky. The chubby mare cut her off as she trotted towards them, frowning at Dr. Stable's expression. Doctor, is something wrong? She followed his gaze and stopped, eyes wide. Oh my. You did say there was one lump this morning, didn't you? Dr. Stable asked. Yes, and it wasn't so big. Together they stared in fascinated horror as the two swellings now nestling about Pinky's shoulder blades. Each was the size of a candy bar. Indeed, it almost looked like someone had inserted two of them under the skin, running down on either side of her spine. The skin along the strength was stretched tight, and a tiny dark pulsates dots there and looked like hidden tar pits. A vein throbbed inside the left one, which they watched, and twitched tandem even with Pinky's pulse. Dr. Stable looked on the underside of the gauze that he had removed it, and it was streaked with gruesome black slime from several burst pustules, but there was no sign of cut Dr. Horse had made less than 2 hours ago. Pinky? Said Dr. Stable. Pinky's ears pricked. The lumps gave an extra large twitch. Yeah? I'm going to touch your back, okay? Oh. She sounded less enthusiastic by the idea, but railed quickly. Okay. Would you like to hold my hoof, sweetie? Offered Mrs. Cake. Yes, please. Once more the two mares were holding on to each other. Dr. Stable ignited his horn and levitated a small probe out of his chest pocket. Gently he nudged one of the lumps. Pinky made a noise like she was shrieking with her mouth closed. Mrs. Cake jerked up as the grip on her hoof increased. It's okay, sweetie, she gruntedly reassured. Consistency is firm, Dr. Stable observed, making a note on his clipboard with another silver telekinesis. He nudged the lamp again from one side, finding the surface fleshy but delicate. It didn't seem to be filling with pus, but there was certainly something else inside. This morning it was like jelly, Miss Cake informed him, and about the size of a coin. Round too. Not like that. I've never seen anything like this before. Replacing the probe and scrubbing some more notes, he stepped back away from the bed. Pinky, I'd like to admit you to the hospital so we can run some tests. I'm just not math. I'm awful at math. All those brain numbers go... Oh, wait. I already did this part. Dr. Stable and Mrs. Cake exchanged nonplussed looks. Miss Cake shrugged, and she had to accept that to give him permission to ignore the statement. She had recalled from her visits to Rainbow Dash's bedside. Pinkie Pie was often given sayings to no pony else understood. For how long? Just overnight? Miss Cake asked hopefully. Quite honestly, I'm not sure how long, he confessed. As long as it takes to get the test results back and figure out what these are. He gestured to Pinkie's back, where the lumps continued to twitch. I'm afraid you won't be allowed to stay with her past visiting hours. He checked her timepiece and pinned to his white coat, like a tiny ticking metal, which will be over in about 45 minutes, and then restart this evening at 6 o'clock. I'll see that she's moved into a room, and then I'll arrange tests with the nurses. Oh, Miss Cake looked disappointed. Don't be sad, Miss Cake, Pinkie said brightly as she could. Now Dashy and I get to compare hospital stories. Sudden realization crossed the older mare's face. Oh, I forgot to tell you. Carrot says he's going to tell your friends what's happening. I'm sure they'll want to visit you too. Yay for Mrs. Cake. Pinkie tried to pump her hoof, only managed to convulse a wriggle. And yay, my friends are coming to see me. Oh, maybe Twilight will know about these weird lumpy bumpy things are. She's super duper smart, and if she doesn't know something, her books usually do. She has a brilliant habit of always finding exactly the right one at exactly right moment. It's really amazing, not to mention it convenient. Dr. Stable smiled indulgently, although another glance at Pinkie's back tightened at the expression of corners. We'll see. Rainbow Dash 4 went the door and headed for the windows. Rainbow! Twilight called sharply. What? If you slowpokes want to use the door, go right ahead. I'll be with Pinkie, waiting for you two to catch up. Do you even know what room she's in? Rainbow Dash pulled up a short, uh-oh. Twilight took a breath to steady herself. Getting the news that Pinkie Pie had rushed to the hospital with a mysterious illness had shaken them all. Facing down monsters, evil dictators, and wild beasts of the Everfree could not even make the bottom drip out of her stomach any faster than Mr. Cake's words. Judging by her friends' faces, they all felt the same way. Applejack shook her head. Sometimes you're just fast. I'm surprised you don't beat yourself coming back in the other way, Rainbow. Rainbow swooped low. Was that an insult? Will you girls keep squabbling and hurry up? Rarity asked beside the hospital's main entrance. It's not only unladylike, but it's aggravating. Look who's talking, Applejack muttered rebelliously as they cantered to join her. Worry had made her snippy stop, but she stopped short of causing an actual argument right now. It was easy to discover which room Pinky was in. The receptionist at the front desk provided them with information and made their way into the muted haze on long corridors and echoed like they were empty, even when it was full of ponies. Stripes of colors on the floor mapped out of the imperturbable system of departments, wards, single rooms, and other places. Even Twilight's zigzagging mind found it difficult to picture. I think room 83 is this way, she said after studying the sign. But the floor arrows only say that reads from room 65 to 80, 60 to 80 to 78. The rooms aren't numberly really categorized, Twilight replied through gritted teeth. Part of her imagined lifting thing off the roof of the hospital and rearranging everything inside like a shoebox house so that it would make more sense. The thoughts were nonsense, but she used them as buffer against the others, less welcome ones. Images of Pinkie Pie in a hospital bed, Pinkie attached to a drip, Pinkie pale and weak, fading away from some horrible illness. I think I found it, Fluttershy whispered. Huh? Broken from her thoughts, Twilight looked up. Just across from there was standing was a set of double doors which read the signs access to room 83, 84, and 85. Gangway! Rainbow Dash flapped her wings to shoot off, and Belly flopped onto the floor. Oof! Hey, what gives? Applejack spit out a mouthful of multicolored tail and nodded at another sign on the wall. This one round and ringed in the red. It featured a tiny silhouette of Pegasus in flight with a big diagonal sign through the middle. No flying indoors. Don't you remember the last time you were here? Oh, Rainbow Dash got to her hooves and marched truculently ahead. Right, I remember. Applejack rolled her eyes, but it was the closest to Rainbow Dash's heels as they trooped through the swinging doors. No pony was sure what they would find. Mr. Cake had been part way through explaining the situation to Twilight and then yelled, Pumpkin, no, not the foe. The signal was cut off. All Twilight had been able to ascertain was that it had been sudden that Mrs. Cake was with Pinkie. I hope she's okay, Fluttershy murmured, voicing all of her thoughts. Of course she'll be okay, Rainbow Dash snapped her shoulder, although there were uncertainty buried in her words that only those who had known her for a long time would have recognized. She's Pinkie Pie. Room 83. Rainbow Dash raised her hoof, hesitated, but didn't protest when Applejack pushed it open instead. Oh, hi, girls! A bubble of tension that encased them popped like some pony had bursted with a pin. See? Rainbow Dash said triumphantly. I told you so. Pinkie Pie lay in bed near the window. She was on her stomach, but that didn't stop her grinning at them like she had won the lottery and they were the grand prize. On the chair next to the bed, Mrs. Cake smiled wanly. There were no sign of an IV drip, and the bedclothes had been folded to the back of the mattress. All good signs, thought Twilight. I'm so happy you all came to visit me, Pinkie squealed in delight. Like we'd be anywhere else at this time of like this, Sugar Cube? Applejack removed her hat to her fan her face. You put quite a scared of us, worse than a locust swarms during harvest time. Whoopsie doodle, sorry. Don't be sorry, darling. Rarity advanced to hug Pinkie, but Miss Cake got up and held out a foreleg to block her. I'm sorry, dear, she said, regretting rolling her off. I just don't think that'd be such a good idea. Excuse me? Rarity blinked at her thumb-moxed. A small frown seized on Miss Cake's forehead. Didn't Carrot tell you? His call got me to cut off, Twilight explained. I had to tell every pony else, but I think you might need a new phone when you get this at home. Oh dear, Pumpkin? How do you know? That's the third phone we've been through since the twins were born. Miss Cake blew a frustrated sigh. She looked more than a little frazzled by the day's events, and barely put on the past lunchtime. Her lackluster hair drooped to one side, like a swirl slowly melting and whipping cream on a mug of hot chocolate. What was he supposed to tell us? Rainbow Dash demanded. Why is Pinkie Pie here when she's clearly okay? Miss Cake stepped away from her, and Rainbow Dash could be pretty imitating when she was on full protective mode. She often didn't realize the effect that she could have on other ponies, and wasn't great at picking up on social cues when emotional. She took a step forward towards Miss Cake. I'm here because of these, Dashy, Pinkie piped up. Lay flat on the bed, and once she was sure all of her friend's intentions, she swept her mane to one side of her neck with a hoof. As one, they all inhaled sharply. What are those? Rainbow Dash couldn't quite keep the disgust from her voice. Twilight appreciated her being the one to ask. She didn't trust herself to sound any less revolted. The doctors aren't sure, said Miss Cake. They've taken some tests, but Dr. Stable said the results won't be back till tomorrow, so they're keeping Pinkie Pie here for observation until then. I'm like all watch the pot that never boils, Pinkie declared. Except I'm not a pot, I'm a pony, and I don't boil. I giggle. As if to demonstrate, she did so. Twilight swallowed hard. She could barely watch her eyes, at least 6 inches long and shivering sporadically. The skin over them was stretched so tight that the veins and arteries showed clearly beneath the surface. The thin coating pink fur had nothing to improve the appearance. Black ugly pulsates pushed up between the hairs as Twilight watched. One quivered and spit, leaking black fluid. Wow, girls, you can stop staring now, Pinkie chuckled. Rarity's mouth worked for a moment before she asked, How are you feeling, darling? Me? Pinkie tried to shrug. I'm okay. Not quite double dip Rocky Road end of the sail awesome, but okay. The unicorn doctor stable brought to see me, and I'm remarkable phenomenon. Phenomenon. Do-do-dee-do-do. She began singing a simple repetitive tune that struck Twilight, slightly jagged at the edges. Pinkie's voice sounded a bit odd, not as quite buoyant as usual. A silver of pain threaded through like the sound where the piece wire was bristled in the best quality hay. Yeah, it took some blood to run medic tests on Magic. Dr. Stable says that he did his best to manage the whole hospital, and if any pony could figure out what these things are, he can. Twilight noticed a snag that caught the cloth like a rusty nail at the end of their speech. Eventually, so did Fluttershy and Applejack as they both stepped towards her. Yet, as always, Rainbow Dash beat them to it, and in lieu of a hug, she ran a hoof through Pinkie's mane, scrubbing at her ears. It's okay, Pinkie, it'll be okay. Pinkie sniffed, her smile not slipping an inch through her eyes were suddenly glassy. Oh, Dashy, she sniffled. Oh, Dashy, you smell like ew. Yeah, sorry about that. Rainbow scrubbed the back of her head, evidently to give her hooves something to do in the absence of a hug. I was helping Sweet Apple Acres and, well, I had a little accident. She learned what the accuracy, not speed, is what counts on making a compost heap, Applejack explained with a wiry grin. P.U. Dashy! Pinkie pinched her snout shut with one hoof and buried her face in the pillow. You need to go home and shower. Go home? Rainbow Dash repeated incredulously. Only I just got here. Yeah, but you do smell a bit ripe, darling, Rarity said archly. Mayhap Twilight knows a spell she could use and I'll freshen you up a little. All eyes turned to Twilight as Rainbow Dash raised a foreleg above her head and sniffed the underneath experimentally. Twilight considered scrolling through the unmerciful spells that she had committed to memory. Well, I guess I could try. Twilight, Pinkie interrupted her. You changed your mane and your fur, wowzers. Her eyes widened, as if she was seeing pink Twilight for the first time. How much dye did you take? Twilight said intelligently. What are you talking about, Pinkie? Rainbow Dash frowned in confusion. Twilight looks the same as she always does. Yes, boring mane style and all, Rarity added. Ah, hush you. Applejack nudged her shoulder with her own. Pinkie's frown put Rainbow Dash to shame. No, she doesn't. She looks totally different. For one thing, she's purple. Every pony exchanged bemused looks. Pinky, I've always been purple, Twilight said slowly. Nuh-uh. Pinky twisted her head onto one side, examining her. You were pink just yesterday. What made you decide to change? Did Rarity finally get to you? Her grin turned to knowing. I told you someday you'd get into the same Madame Teresa's hair salon if you weren't careful. She sing-songed, but you're cutie mark. Twilight looked at over Rarity, but the other unicorn was clearly just as confused. Oh dear, murmured Miss Cake. All other conversation was preceded by arrival of a pale yellow pony with a cross cutie mark and matching the hat of the nurse. Her blue mane was bound tight against the back of her neck and hairnet, and it looked like the pull on the scalp was in her poor mood. She had glared icily at the assembled mares. Only 2 visitors at the time, please. The please has infection in a far different word than professionalism and did not allow her to stay. Pinky shook her head. Whoopsie doodles, I guess you'll go for your bath after all, Dashy. Besides which, the nurse went on as if Pinky hadn't spoken. Visiting hours ended like 5 whole minutes ago, so you'll all have to leave. Her tone left no room for argument. I'll see you're as chirpy as ever, Nurse Snowheart. Rainbow Dash didn't bother to hide her sarcasm. The nurse transferred her glare solely to Rainbow Dash, who managed to withstand it almost 60 whole seconds before dropping her gaze. If you please, the yellow mare insinuated, stepping to one side and gesturing the door for the imperious hoof. But we hardly got to speak to our friend at all, Dash continued to protest. Then be here promptly at 6 o'clock for evening visit hours. I think we'd better do as she says, said Fluttershy. We don't want to break the rules, do we? Snowheart by name, Snowheart by nature, Rainbow Dash muttered. Nonetheless, she walked past the corridor where the 5 friends plus Miss Cake gathered before the door swung shut behind them. Bye, girls, Pinky waved. I'll see you late. They made their way back to the reception, each pursuing their own thoughts until they were nearly at the end of the brief journey. Okay, what the hay was all that about? Rainbow Dash demanded. Twilight? I have no idea, Twilight replied. Miss Cake? No, that was new. Miss Cake shook her head. This morning she woke up with a lump on her back, and a few hours had turned to, well, you saw them, she shivered. She had all of her wits, though. She knew who I was, who Carrie and Pumpkin Pound were, and even remembered Dr. Horse, and now she gives out lollipops to little fillies who behave themselves. Oh dear, I hope her memory isn't being affected. Rainbow Dash glanced over her shoulder as if expected Pinky to be standing near the corridor behind them. Of course she wasn't. Do you think it was a bad sign? She asked uncertainly. Or do you think she was just joking? She sounded completely convinced, said Rarity. Not like she was joking at all. Perhaps we should tell a doctor about it, Fluttershy suggested. Twilight nodded. That sounds like a good idea. Come on, girls, let's go find Dr. Stable. I'm sorry, but Dr. Stable is in a meeting right now and can't be disturbed. The pony behind the receptionist's desk was not the one they had spoken to when they had arrived. None of that mare's corrality. Her steel gray coat and steeler gray eyes said quite clearly that she was immovable as a metal wall reverted to the ground across her path. But we really need to speak with him, Rainbow Dash insisted, placing her hooves on her desk and leaning forward instantly. She was surrounded by a silvery aura and forcibly moved back. It is clearly stated for ponies to keep all their limbs behind the line, the receptionist crisply informed her. Please. What's with the ponies around here using the please like an insult? Twilight wondered. She put a hoof on Rainbow Dash's shoulder, shaking her head before taking her place at the desk. Ma'am, we're sorry, but while we are visiting our friend, she came in today as an emergency case. She said something that worried us a little, and we thought we should know. Since her attending doctor and her symptoms are problematic, to say the least, we thought this might help the diagnosis to facts that he might not already be aware of. The receptionist sniffed. She snuffed through some papers rudely levitated between them, and Twilight played so her face was obscured. I'll pass your concerns when he comes out of his meeting. Write down your concerns on this forum and sign your name. I'll make sure he gets it. Yeah, you sure will, Rainbow Dash snorted. Hey! She rubbed her hind leg where Applejack's hoof had caught it. That ain't helping, Applejack hissed. I thought we talked about the importance of having an internal and external monologue. Twilight took up the quill. Well, as long as he gets to see this, I guess it will have to do. Though privately, she resolved to seek him out at precisely 6 o'clock and tell him face to face. Whatever was wrong with Pinky, the symptoms were desperate and formed into a pattern that Twilight could see, at least until more data presented itself for her and to find the patterns then. Again, she would have to read a few more books. Neither medicine nor medical magic were her areas of expertise. They left the hospital both lightened and more dejected than they had arrived. No pony said anything as they trundled away, not until Miss K clears her throat. If it's okay with you girls, I'm gonna go home now and tell poor Carrot what's going on. He'll be by himself with worry by now, and I hate to think what else but Pumpkin damaged her Surge. She winced. I've had to start making multiple copies of family photographs in case she burns them up. No problem, Mrs. K, said Head Rainbow Dash. Thanks for looking after Pinky today. Oh, no, there's no need to thank me, dear. Miss Cake waved a hoof like she was trying to dissipate the clouds of midges. What else I could possibly have done? Pinky's like family. With a few more goodbyes, she separated off from the group and trotted away in the direction of Sugar Cube Corner. Rainbow Dash watched her pensively. You know, I bet she's a great mom. Some ponies are just made to be moms. She sure played a part for Pinky today, said Applejack. At the mention of her friend, everyone felt silent again. So, Twilight, any theories on what those whatever they were on her back? Rainbow Dash eventually asked. I don't know, Twilight admitted, but I'd like to take a look at the medical section of the library before we go back this evening. Sounds like a plan to me. Rainbow Dash spun around one hoof and launched herself into the air. As ever, her intent was very clearly, why walk when you can fly? Come on. Where are all of you coming? Twilight said as Rarity, Applejack, and Fluttershy trotted forward. Well, of course, darling, Rarity said. What else did you expect? If I go home, I'll just fret, Applejack confessed. It won't be you worth a whit, no pony, a distracted apple farmer with an injured apple farmer. I reckon the best thing I could do right now is to book some check-in instead. Leastways, then I'll feel like I'm doing something constructive, instead of moping around like a ball of yarn with no cat. It's always different when illness is involved, Fluttershy said quietly, especially if it's something you can't cure yourself, when you can't do anything physical to fix the situation, or if you have to rely on others. It makes you feel helpless. She ducked her head. At least that's what I always found of one of my animal friends gets too sick for me to help, she trailed off, only just realizing what she was saying. Oh yeah, Fluttershy is probably the most familiar of all of us with this sort of thing, Twilight thought. Her own mind was taking the same pathway Fluttershy's had and coming to the same conclusion, including the part where she and the animals got so sick that they don't recover. There's something she can do about it. Twilight shook her head vigorously. Stop that. Pinky was fine. She was just talking and laughing and acting like her regular Pinky self, except for the part where she didn't recognize me and those things growing out of her back end. Hey, Twilight, are you coming or what? Rainbow Dash was already some distance away. She hung her head midair, hooves cupped around her mouth. Ah, yes, I'm coming. Twilight scrambled to her friends. Nurse Redheart did not like Nurse Snowheart. Unfortunately, in working such a vacancy and many overlapping hours, she had learned to bite her tongue and smile when the nurse got on her nerves. That wasn't to say she was always in a good mood herself, but her moments of irritation and frustration were nothing compared with the sheer wind chill factor Snowheart just called bedside manner. Bedpan check-in rooms 83 through 85, Snowheart informed her imperiously. You can have that one, Redheart. Redheart gritted her teeth, reminding herself that Snowheart was her superior, and telling anyone superior to shove a ginger root up their backside was a bad career move. Over Snowheart's shoulder she could see Nurse Sweetheart shaking her head, while Nurse Tenderheart made cutting motions across her throat. Taking their lead, Redheart drew in a breath and smiled and nodded. Your turn next time, though, she said with a false cheer. Snowheart said nothing, leaving Redheart with the uneventful task of checking out the free room's bedpans and emptying the contents of any full ones. She stared at 85 and worked her way backwards. The occupant of 83 was new, but Redheart had recognized the name the moment she saw on the chart. It was difficult to forget a pony whose baking had once reduced half of Ponyville to vomiting wrecks. By all the accounts, Pinkie Pie was actually a talented baker, and had also been caught in a puke-a-thon when she had named it while Redheart held a bucket underneath her face. Months had passed since then, and Redheart was still circumspect about eating pastries from Sugar Cube Corner. Pinkie Pie, she nevertheless to say, warmly as she unhooked the chart and went inside. It was hard to hold anything against the bubbly pink pony, who typically light up the whole Ponyville with a smile. "And what brings you here today, young lady?" she asked, looking at the notes and first and the pony's self for a second. She stopped in her tracks. Pinkie was on her side, on back to the window. She had curled up into a ball, her face buried in her own tail, and was shaking like she had just come in from a blizzard. Redheart hurried to her side. All thoughts of bedpans had forgotten as she crouched down to Pinkie's face. "Pinkie Pie?" she said, soft and slow. "Where does it hurt? Tell me where you hurt, Pinkie." Pinkie's eyes were huge and pupils shrunk into pinpricks. It took a few seconds for her to register Redheart's presence. Even after she turned her face towards the nurse, she blinked like she didn't recognize her. "I'm not meant to be here," she whispered. "Pinkie Pie, you're not very well. The hospital is exactly where you need to be right now." "All wrong," Pinkie whispered fiercely. "It's all wrong. Even the parts that are right are wrong." "Pinkie Pie?" Redheart glanced at the emergency button on the bed frame. She had always talked her patients down first and only hit that if she needed to. Porters, nurses, and security ponies flooding this little room wouldn't be a help right now. "Subtile and big subtile," Pinkie gabbled, and held up a hoof to her face, turning it over like it was some alien thing. "Why am I this way? I shouldn't be this way. Is this me? I can't remember except the bits that I can. Where's the estate? I was by the pool watching the babies have their swimming lesson, and then I can't remember. What's wrong? I'm wrong. Everything is wrong. Send me home, please." "Pinkie Pie, I need you to focus on me," Redheart said, again in a slower manner designed to soothe. "Look at me, Pinkie Pie. Look at me." Bit by bit, the blue eyes shifted to meet hers. Redheart was shocked but didn't show it. Pinkie Pie's eyes were indeed wrong. It was a feint, and Redheart would have had a hard time justifying it to be more practically minded of colleagues, but something in those eyes seemed off-kilter. They looked like the wrong color. The shade of blue, too dark, was getting even darker at the edges. Then abruptly things shifted back to the tear-proper place, and pupils expanded. It was as if a switch had been thrown somewhere inside her head. Pinkie Pie blinked. In an instant she knew truly Pinkie Pie again. "Nurse Redheart, why are you squeezing my face?" "And I apparently don't remember a thing." Redheart hadn't realized she was. She unreleased the cupping hold, allowing Pinkie to rub at her cheeks. A small groan escaped her lips. "Why am I on my side?" she asked hoarsely. "It really hurts. Like a lot." Redheart helped her roll onto her stomach, throat constricting as she saw lumps on her back. It looked like some pony had thrusted a pair of metal pipes into Pinkie Pie from behind and then covered them in ill-fitting fur. They moved as Pinkie drew in, shuddering. Pain-soaked breath after shuddering. Pain-soaked breath. Something thick and dark leaked from suppressing sores caused by the thing of skin tearing. Redheart instantly set about cleaning up the wounds. At first she thought the black stuff might be an infection, but there were no other signs, and there were no other tail rotten smell either. In fact, Pinkie smiled roundly of sweets, but when the black gunge waffled close to her face, it reminded Redheart strongly of Ponyville's library, though she couldn't explain why. "Thanks," Pinkie said gratefully. "I don't know why I rolled over when it hurts so much to move. She reached behind her and poked tentatively at one of her growths. "Oh," her voice was all lost to a semblance of cheers. "They've grown again." Redheart was about to say something when strangled a gulp made her stop. "At this rate, by the time my test results come back, there'll be more of these things than there is of me," Pinkie tried, for a giggle, but it felt flat. "It's kind of scary, you know, not knowing what they are or what's happening to me." Her voice became a whisper no pony knew who her would have expected, or what's going to happen to me. A fat tear rolled down her cheek, and then another and another. In only a few seconds she was struggling not to bawl, and Red Heart was only doing the only thing she could think of in circumstance, hugging Pinky's head. She shushed her over and stroked her mane as internally positive Pink Pony sobbed herself ragged. "For thanks," she eventually sniffed. "I think I needed that. Hey, good thing I didn't cry when my friends were here, or they'd worry like silly fillies." "Sometimes every pony needs a good cry," Red Heart said sagely. "Better out than in." "Like burps?" Pinky whispered. "Or gas?" Despite herself, Red Heart snorted. "Nurse Red Heart?" "Yes, Pinky?" "Have you seen any pony with things like this before?" Red Heart paused before answering. "No, Pinky, I haven't." She had seen strangely lumpy growths before, usually in cancer cases, but nothing like it ever grown at that rate Pinky's chart said and hers had grown. "Pinky, do you remember what you said to me when I came in?" Pinky fought hard. "I asked you why I was on my side. I guess I must have fallen asleep. I always roll on my side when I'm sleeping, though it's usually not the right, not the left. But I guess I must have gotten all twisty turned around since I'm a strange bed instead of my snuggly wuggly warm one back at home." She didn't remember any of the strange things she said. Delusions maybe? Waking dreams? She wasn't on any medication yet, so it could be adverse reaction to that. Red Heart resolved to find Dr. Stable and tell him about this. Maybe he would have an idea. "Hey, Nurse Heart, Red Heart?" "Yes?" "Is there any way I can get some food around here? I missed lunch and now I'm starving." "Oh," Red Heart blinked. "I'll see what I can do." "Thanks," Pinky beamed. "You're a peach." She giggled at the funniest joke she ever told in the entire history of the world. High above Ponyville, Cloud could be carefully placed by the Weather Patrol effervesced like a corpse filled with maggots. Convulsively, as small black lines wriggled out of its folds and worked their way into the neighboring cloud. They writhed and squirmed and twisted across the sky, silently making their way through the town and onto the open sky above the countryside beyond. "Hey!" A gray Pegasus swooped down her path. Dizzy Doo wasn't the fastest or smartest pony in Ponyville, but even she knew something like this wasn't normal. She landed on the cloud, sending the lines onto an apparent panic. "Pony feathers, what are these?" Black lines crowded together, spitting out fragments of themselves into odd patterns across the cloud. "This doesn't look good," Ditsy muttered to herself. She turned to fly away, deciding upon what it was to her the most natural recourse of a crisis. "I better go get Rainbow Dash." The clouds below descended backwards in black. Twilight had discarded yet another book and looked at the clock. It was nearly 5:30. "Time to head back to the hospital," she thought bleakly. They had been searching the library for hours, and none of the books had rendered any information they had hoped for. Behind her, Rainbow Dash sat literal tower of books, looming over the rest of their friends, but as she flipped irritably through a medical journal, Twilight might have been commenting on misusing books, but her frustration made her bite her tongue in case something she said regretted. "This is dumb," Rainbow Dash declared, snapping her book shut. "Half of the words I don't understand, even with the dictionary you gave me, Twilight, and the other half didn't say anything useful." She tossed it away like it was a frisbee. Halfway between her and the floor, laughter aura enveloped and it brought it gently to Twilight's own hooves. "I thought I told you not to do that." A frustration frosted Twilight's words. "It deserved to go splat. It's useless." "These books aren't useless. Don't snap, don't snap, don't snap." Snapping at her won't help anything. Twilight brought a hoof to her chest and pushed it away, breathing out and imagining her negative emotions leaving her body out of that breath, just as Cadence had taught her. When she spoke again, her words were less metal spikes. "They just don't happen to have the exact information we want at this exact time." "Like I said," Rainbow Dash folded her forelegs, "useless." Twilight did carrying this exercise again, which was effective less this time. Even the third, her fraying nerves must have shown on her faces for Applejack to choose that moment to interject. "So how are we gonna do this visiting thing?" We go to the hospital and see Pinky, same as last time. Rarity rolled her eyes. Thank you for that stunning piece of repartee, Rainbow Dash, but I believe Applejack was referring to the 2 visitors at one time rule. Oh, Rainbow Dash frowned. Right. Well, we could draw straws and see who goes first, Fluttershy suggested. It was babyish and simplistic, but in the dearth of other suggestions, the others agreed. Each one wanted to be able to get in first to see Pinky, but this was unaware that this sentiment was shared by all. Not even Rainbow Dash could come up with a reason to shove her friends aside, and she would go first without looking like a total heel. Instead, Spike went to fetch a clutch of drinking straws from the kitchen, and it took longer than Twilight had expected, and eventually he brought them through the circle of waiting mares. And I get to go too this time, he said potently. He had not been happy to return from the grocery store, and only to run to the library abandoned by the front door, swinging on its hedges. In her haste and worry, Twilight had neglected to shut her behind her, and now how apologizing for her worrying him. In the context of their lives, where being abducted from one's house by the nefarious forces was an actual possibility, it did not have to leave one's friends uninformed about crisis. Sorry, Spike. Twilight's ears plastered themselves against her skull in embarrassment. He waved a claw. Stop apologizing, Twilight. You were panicked, I get it. Just do that calm down thing at cadence and think of me next time, okay? He held out the straws. I bobbed some food coloring into the bottoms. The 2 are red and 2 are green and 2 are blue. We figure we could decide which color goes first and then divide ourselves up. Good thinking, Spike. Twilight was impressed. That's something mighty fine figuring, Sugar Cube, Applejack greeted. You clever little... Rarity stared until Rainbow Dash interrupted her. Yeah, woohoo, Spike's a genius. Can we draw the straws and get going already? He had thrown down from the top of her book mountain and now shifted from hoof to hoof in unconcealed impatience. Don't get your tail in a bunch, Rainbow. We'll get there in plenty of time, said Applejack. How about we go red, green, and then blue, in order of the color of the spectrum, Twilight suggested. She waited for Rainbow Dash to go do some egg-headed comment, but it never came. The 2 which drew straws, red straws, go first, and then the green straws go second. Well, you don't have to spell it out, Twilight. We're not dumb just because we're not eggheads like you. Ah, there it was. Strangely, however, it was Rarity who snapped. Rainbow Dash, darling, while I told you and I understand you're worried about Pinky and you're eager for off, that is no reason to keep being so rude. We're all worried about her and all wish to depart as quickly as possible. We are not blackbiting each other because of it. It doesn't help. A lock of mane fell into her eyes with the force of her inflection. Rainbow Dash lowered her eyes, and then her head. Yeah, I guess so. I'm sorry, Twilight. It's okay, Rainbow. Yet Rainbow Dash's hooves didn't stop shifting as every pony took the straw and looked at their color. She groaned when her straw was hers. Blue? Aw, nuts. Red, said Twilight. I guess we're first, Applejack. Rarity held up her green-stained straw. Spike didn't quite manage to mask a pleasant grin at being paired with her. Fluttershy held up the matching pair to Rainbow Dash's. Shall we go then? Rarity asked, levitating over a paper wastebasket in which they disposed their straws. No chance for a redraw? Rainbow Dash muttered. No, didn't think so. Big Macintosh hauled the traces into his cart and hitched himself with a precise ease. Though he didn't have his sister's platter, he was still a good apple seller, and he had brought in quite a lot of money today. Granted, some of this was down to pretty mares wanting an excuse to talk to him, but he accepted their giggly overtures as the same accepted for any pony's conversation, with a few words and a linguine obvious smile. As he trundled away, a gray shape bobbled across the rooftops that bordered the supermarket square. With a squawk and a crash, several roof tiles fell to the floor, closely followed by an upside-down pony. Given that it was the last seller to shut up the shop and go home, Big Macintosh hurried over to see if his help was needed. Miss Dew? The gray mare in the center of the broken tiles wavered from one side to her haunches. She shook her head and blinked a few times and looked down at the mess. Uh-oh. Are you all right, Miss Dew? I made a boo-boo, she said dolefully.
What? Miss Dew, did you hit your head? Her eyes were wrong. Neither of them focused on him. Instead, they were drifting out in opposite directions. Could a concussion do that? She stared at him with her left eye, although her right stared off into mid-distance. Huh? The same light lasted for too long. She definitely sounded like she sustained some kind of head trauma. Ditsy Doo wasn't the brightest crayon in the box, but she was more articulate than this. Do? She cooed. Do who? Her high, bubbly voice had become low-pitched rasp. Ditsy, I think you should get on my cart and I'll take you to the hospital. He looked at behind her and then back at him. Are you talking to me? Again with the alarmed words and the odd, almost coltish voice. Again with the drifting eyes. His worry deepened. I'm not Ditsy. Ditsy is... She paused, frowning at the thought. Some other pony. She didn't see much. Get lost easily. I'm Derpy, she beamed proudly at him, lisping the words. Derpy hooves. Big Macintosh opened his mouth to respond. Oh hey, more of them. Huh? He turned to look where she was pointing. He caught a sight of what looked like black worms crawling all over the apples that he had left over from the market. Some even poked shiny red fruits, though they didn't quite seem to cause actual damage. What the? A world of darkness erupted over him. As he emerged under the black wave, unable to yell or fight back, Ditsy changed. The voice echoed in his ears. Uh-oh, I just don't know what went wrong. Nurse Redheart stroked Pinky's mane and shushed her away. Tears flowed freely from the poor mare's eyes as she scrunched them shut as a wave after wave of pain. Then asked she could not do the summoned breath to explain the specifics where it hurt and how. So Redheart had nothing to tell Dr. Stable when he arrived. Everything, Pinky gritted when he asked the same questions. Feels wrong. She sucked in the high-pitched gasp and another spasm of agony shook her. Her legs convulsed, trying to pull a footstool position while also splayed out, giving her the apprentice of a marionette with tangled strings and very untalented puppeteer. My bones are burning. Dr. Stable's horn flared. He yanked over the trolley to find the items and select one at glance. As Pinky's whole body jerked and another strangled shriek left her, he found a vein in her foreleg and drove the hypothermic home. Moments later, her muscles relaxed. Her eyes drifted shut, although she was clearly fighting the sedative. She blinked, forcing herself to look at the two ponies beside her. Her eyeballs seemed to shiver for one long moment before they rolled up into her skull. For a moment, Redheart could have sworn a shroom flowed over them, making them appear briefly purple. As Pinky's hold on to her hoof slackened, Redheart breathed a sigh of relief. Not so Dr. Stable. He worked quickly and efficiently, dabbing the cotton bud that the dark gunge that leaked the tears from the corners of Pinky's eyes and dripped out of her nose. He carefully placed in his sealable polythene bag and levitated above them. I'm putting a rush on her test results, he said briskly. Redheart bit her lip. She was just talking to me and then she screamed. A tray of food lay on the floor, one alone cupcake upended in a sad little splatter. An apple and a heap of grapes were somewhere across the room, flung where the convulsions had started, and a flailing hoof knocked the tray from Redheart's grasp. There was no warning. The growths don't seem to have changed shape at all, Dr. Stable observed, looking at the neatly written updates that she had made to Pinky's chart. Did she say whatever they hurt? You heard her, Redheart replied. Everything feels wrong, she kept saying it. And that's something about her bones burning over and over. When she could speak at all, those screams would stay in Redheart's head for a good long time. Dr. Stable frowned. Though that's not her at all. This isn't anything like I've ever encountered before. The symptoms don't match, and it's all happening too fast. Even with the head of Magic was stumped, his team were analyzing her sample he took from her right now. Should she be quarantined? Redheart asked nervously. This might be a communicable disease. He shook his head. No, his immediate test told us whatever it was, isn't transmittable. Magic is a test for that? You'd be surprised what Magic can do, he said carelessly, intending not to insult, but to the carelessness made by the bristle. She had been there for 2 years before she arrived from Philadelphia, and the two big shot doctor from the big city, she'd be surprised what medic magic could do. You just said this isn't anything like you've encountered before, she pointed out. What if it doesn't transmit in any way you've encountered before either? Dr. Stable seemed to give her the words of serious consideration. Have you been feeling sick? What, me? No. And the itching on her back was subchronic. It was, she has checked in a break when no pony was there to cave her paranoia. Me neither, and one of the characteristics of these things seemed to be rapid and severe decline. His eyes were unfocused once more. Then again, we don't know how long the incubation period is either. He fell silent for a long tense moment. Doctor? You're right, he said gravely. Until we know what it is, we should play it safe. Far outside Ponyville, Inky Pie worked diligently on shrinking pile of paperwork. Ever since her father gave all the accounting tasks over her, the rock farm had been bringing some more revenue than ever. The fact that they had struck a seam of gems in the last quarter helped immensely, and even made up for the mess caused by the inconvenient unicorn they had briefly employed a few months ago. Not briefly enough, Inky fought rarely. They went to temp workers like crazy, but that one of the crazy pony who temped their way through, Inky couldn't say that she had been sorry to see the back of her. Some pony knocked her on the door of her office. She looked up, spectacles sliding at the end of her snout. Come in. A tail and flank entered before the rest of her sister. I brought you some dinner, Blinky said, presenting her with a tray of food. Otherwise I knowed you forget to eat. Mama and Papa say that they never see you at the table anymore. Is it dinner time already? Inky consulted the clock on the wall. Pony feathers it was. When she got stuck into a task, she rarely came up for air until it was done. Present her with a sheet of numbers and she was happy as well as Pinky. As usual, she felt the same old jolt of longing to see her other sister. As usual, she tamped it down, knowing Pinky was happy in Ponyville and didn't make Inky miss her any less. It hurt that Mama and Papa never talked about her, as if their youngest daughter had ceased to exist. To them, she had some days, Inky thought. If it weren't for those photos Blinky had hoarded, their parents might have erased Pinky's memory from existence entirely. It isn't right, she thought, though who was she to talk? She had chosen to stay alive and live by the rules of their family. Are you nearly done? Blinky asked. She was sweaty and dusty from the day of the quarry. Despite being a supervisor, she often picked up tools and joined those she was supposed to be bossing about. She never seemed to practically enjoy her work, not the way Inky enjoyed her numbers. Inky sighed. Almost. I don't know how you can stay out here longer than you have to, Blinky said unexpectedly. She waved a hoof at the desk, although the gesture seemed to have compressed far more than just Inky's shack of the office. Doesn't it make you, I don't know, mad sometimes? Mad? Mad, angry, annoyed, rageful, livid, pick a synonym, Blinky exclaimed. Being stuck here on this damn farm, farming rocks for the rest of our lives? She shook her head. Who the heck farms rocks? Blinky. Inky stood up and came from behind her desk, but Blinky was already at the door. Never mind, she muttered, keeping her face averted. It doesn't matter. It's dumb. I know. I'm just blowing off steam. Forget I asked. Blinky, Inky said sharply, are you thinking about leaving? It wouldn't surprise her. Blinky had already antsy ever since that awful visit. To do what? Blinky let out a small bitter laugh. All I know is rocks. Rocks in the brain, rocks in the hooves, and rocks in the blood. She parroted their father's saying by the Pie family had been farming rocks for around 7 generations. All I know is rocks. Blinky shook her head. You know something. I really envy her. Inky didn't have to ask who. You could always do what she did. Leave? Blinky snorted. Get shunned? I'm not that brave, but sometimes. She paused before carrying on, as if she wasn't sure what to say truly on her mind. Sometimes I wish this whole place would just disappear so we could start over. Try something else. Anything but farming rocks. Inky didn't say anything. She couldn't think of what to say. Blinky retreated from the office, trotting across the open quarry back to the homestead where their parents were waiting for her. Like I said, it's just me being dumb. High above, little black lines wriggled across the clouds. What do you mean she's not here? Rainbow Dash shouted. The grim receptionist from their last visit was impassive as ever. Miss Pinkamania Dane Pie has been moved to an isolation ward. She isn't receiving any visitors. Pony feathers. Whoa there, Philly. Applejack grabbed her before she could try to vault for the desk. Let's get the facts before we start making hoo-ha. An isolation ward? Twilight echoed. Why? I'm not at liberty to say. You aren't family. Oh, for Rainbow language, Rarity barked. We shouldn't let her family know. No, Twilight fought abruptly. They haven't had a clue about any of this. If Pinky is this sick, she shook her head. How had this happen? Just yesterday, Pinky had been leaping around at the table at Sugar Cube Corner, trying to get to her latest creation, the lemon surprise muffin. What's the surprise? Twilight had asked, unsure of the incurious-looking thing laid before her. Pinky had giggled. Silly Philly, if I told you, it wouldn't be a very good surprise, would it? The surprise had turned out to be a thick pool of lemony soup in the center of the muffin. It had dripped down Twilight's chin onto the tablecloth, making Pinky laugh out loud. Surprise! Unbidden tears welled in Twilight's eyes. She had tried to blink them away. Ever since she entered Princess Celestia's school for gifted unicorns, she rarely felt truly helpless, even when faced with the worst problems imaginable. She took the comfort of the kernel and confidence that came from knowing hundreds upon hundreds of spells. Her default internal response was a crisis to still use magic on it, even though after years of Ponyville she rarely said it out loud anymore. She couldn't use magic to solve this. She was totally relevant on other ponies and expertise to make sure her friend was okay. Now on top of it, she couldn't even see Pinky for reassurance anymore. She wiped a hoof across her eyes. Twilight? Spike said softly, perched on her back. He laid a palm on her mane, the way he used to when she was upset as a filly. I'm fine, Spike, she said huskily. She cleared her throat and asked the receptionist. So is there no way we can see her? No. Short, blunt, and flexible, the gray mare's eyes turned to Twilight like a laser. Twilight turned around. Applejack, you've known Pinky for a long time, right? I guess, though Rarity's known her for nearly as long as I have. She chased up around Ponyville until we'd be her friends when she moved here. Why? Twilight blinked back, tears out before they could fall. She might not be able to do much, but all she could do is this. Do you have any contact details for her parents' rock farm? Dr. Stable was about to get his breathing mask in, preparing for entering the isolation unit, where Miss Sweetheart jogged up to him. Given that he was a chubby mare who liked her more fair share of chocolate, she was puffing so hard when she reached him. Test results for you, she panted. The isolation patient. Already? He accepted the clipboard and hastily surveyed it. Not all the results were there, but the rush job he had ordered had apparently worked on at least one of the samples. His eyebrows crept in his hairline. No wonder why the results had come back quickly. They were nearly impossible to believe. This can't be right. What is it? Asked Nurse Sweetheart. No, he said instead of answering her. This is impossible. Dr. Stables? He raised his eyes to hers. Ink? Excuse me? These results say the substance I collected from her eyes is ink. Sweetheart's forehead wrinkled in consideration. Ink? He flipped through the papers. Yes, it definitely said ink. One of the lab technicians had even attached a post-it note to the bottom asking whatever the results of a spell unicorn gone wrong. They were recorded with cases wherein teenage horns and unpracticed spellcasters accidentally caused their bodies to record to turn spew for all sorts of awful things. Frogs, beetles, lizards, tadpoles, and even, in one instance, solid gold coins. Yet Pinkie Pie was an earth pony, and according to the accounts given by herself and Mrs. Cake when they arrived, she had worked at Sugar Cube Corner every day this week, and only briefly had prolonged contact with Fluttershy yesterday, while outdoors open for air, away from the unicorns. He gave the clipboard back to Nurse Sweetheart. If any other results arrive, page me immediately. Don't come into the unit. I am going to check on the patient. Nurse Sweetheart's expression remained worried as she pushed open the heavy door, which popped like a refrigerator when the seal gave way. There was a corridor between the isolation unit and the rest of Ponyville General. kept clean by the facetious janitors, even though they rarely had cause to the unit. Pinkie Pie was their first resident in over 6 months. A line of 4 beds lined against the wall, none of them were occupied, though the covers of the last one had been thrown back. "Pinkie?" Dr. Stable called anxiously. The only way in and out of the unit was through the door he had just used. A window on the other side of the wall provided light, but it didn't open. Instead, the ventilation unit was kept at the atmosphere that was controlled temperature. He had supervised Pinkie's transportation down here only a short while ago. A sedative he had given her could not have at least worn off yet. It was to be infused with med magic, and it was more effective with the fewer side effects than regular aesthetics. In one corner of the room floated a gently burbling ball of security magic, designed to keep an eye on the room's occupants, and raise the alarm if their vitals plummeted or they need to leave. His eyes scanned the room, and there, crouched on top of the tall cabinet housed all the medicine in the unit, was Pinkie Pie. Her entire musculate seemed to locked into place, as if one twitch could make her fall. With all 4 legs tucked underneath her like that, the lumps on her back brushed the ceiling. Even though those ugly things seemed to have stopped moving, she was very, very still. Now, how in Celestia's name did she get up there? Dr. Stable wondered. He hurried over, Horn reacting instinctively to the sight of the patient in danger. "Pinkie! Pinkie Pie!" She didn't answer. "Pinkamania Dane Pie!" Warily, the pink pony turned her head. Her expression was such of a deep-rooted fear that Dr. Stable barely recognized her. Pinkie Pie had 1,000 varieties of smile, but the other emotions were like crayon drawings compared to her master painting, simple, sincere, and glueless. "Pinkie, what are you doing up there?" Dr. Stable asked, trying to get the gentle and audible at the same time. "Why do you keep calling me that?" she replied angrily. If her face had barely been recognizable, what came out of her mouth belonged to a different pony altogether. It was her voice, but the infection wasn't like that her at all. She clutched her head. "No, no, 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 no! Pinkie, we need to get you down from there before you hurt yourself. This is wrong. 1 + 1 = 2. Add 2 ones and you don't get just 1? Can't squeeze the blood from a stone. Can't this make something from nothing? Can't fit 1,000 of books into 99 spaces. Pinkie Pie." "Who's that?" Pinkie braced her forehooves and leaned her neck out to glare down at him. "Is that her? Is that me? I can see pieces, but not everything, and the pieces aren't even moving right in order. Some of them have been left behind. What am I missing? What am I missing?" she shrieked. "They didn't bring me all across. Now how do I know this is really me? How do I know?" Dr. Stables didn't understand what she was talking about. How could he? It was all nonsense. Had her mystery illness affected her mental faculties? Was this the result of med magic interacting with her changed body chemistry? There would be time enough to ponder that later now. His immediate concern was getting her off of the cabinet before she fell. "Pinkie, I'm going to use my magic to get you down, okay?" "What?" She blinked at him. "You can't wink it out. There isn't enough room up here for the both of us." "Wink out? Hold steady now." His horn flared with telekinesis, honed by the years of flawlessly handling sharp implements and lifting comatose bodies. It wrapped around Pinkie. She started to struggle, and panic infusing her face until her back brushed against the ceiling. Protests devolved into an agnostic screech. "What? Where are my—" No, not them. Please don't say I lost them too." "I'm going to get you down now," Dr. Stable said firmly. "Here we go." Let me go. Let me go. Don't you see? Don't you see this is all wrong? I'm not meant to be here. I was never meant to be here. This is all wrong. You can't force 2 things into one, however much you want to. The one breaks, and if I replace her, it's murder." She hissed at the words as if she never said it before. "Won't someone please send me back? Please, please, please. I don't want to be here. Bad things will happen if I just stay here, and I just know it." And down, Dr. Stable set Pinkie's hooves onto the floor as he hesitated before releasing his magic. She was irrational, plus, if she had somehow managed to scramble up the cabinet door under her own power, then she could have been unconscious, and who knows what else she could do. Code Amber ID stable, he said loudly. With the ball of security, magic brightened with the orange and began whooping. What's that? Pinky demanded. What did you do? I'm just bringing some ponies to help you, Pinky. Who's that? She cried. Minutes later, 2 porters entered the isolation unit. Both wore breathing masks, just like him. Wordlessly, they stood either side of Pinkie Pie as he released a telekinetic hold of her. He tensed in case and she sprang at him, but she cowered away and placed her forehooves over her head. I want to go home. And then something shifted. A ripple wept over like a breeze, filled with waving of corn, and then it passed. She raised her head, looking around with entrance. I switched rooms? She asked brightly. How come? Dr. Stable gasped. Pinky? Hi, Doc, what's up? Pinky snickered to herself. What's up too, Doc? Oh, I kill me sometimes. When Twilight put down the payphone, every pony was aware to exchange their posture. She had stared with the call ears flat. She had pricked halfway through and spoke to whoever was on the line, always a sign of something capturing her interest, subsequently slamming down her throat and phone, damning a fresh coin without explanation as to why on Twilight behavior. Not even Rainbow Dash was shocked to even flatten her face to register what kind of horror that made her hair stand up every pull on Pony's spine. Her friends waited patiently for whoever she had to tell them. Come on, come on, come on, come on! Rainbow Dash fought, her hooves twitching. What's wrong? The rock farm, Twilight said disbelievingly. It's not there. Huh? Applejack frowned. What do you mean it's not there? It's a rock farm, Sugar Cube. Those don't move. Well, this one did. Rainbow was unimpressed. Seriously, Twilight? This is a lousy time to be making jokes. Her knowledge of her friend kicked as she reached the end of her sentence. Twilight would not make jokes like that, especially not at a time like this. You're not joking, are you? Twilight shook her head. She looked shunned. The number Applejack gave me put me through a Ponyville neighboring village. They said they never heard of any rock farm in that area, or any Pie family. They said that there's never been a rock farm anywhere near there, and that it was a stupid idea anyhow. Who farms rocks, so I called Equestrian Telegraphy Center in Canterlot. Top what? Rainbow Dash was interrupted. They kept maps all of Equestria. And you just happen to know their phone number by heart? I helped them map out to a previously uncharted areas of Everfree Forest after we defeated Nightmare Moon and have a pathetic memory. But that's not important, Twilight said dismissively. The point is they agree, and there is not nor there has been a rock farm belonging to a family named Pie. Not there, and not anywhere in Equestria. What? The exclamation echoed in her several voices. But that's preposterous, Rarity protested. We know it exists. Why, that brood of a showmare Trixie went to work there for a while, and she showed us the pictures. I know that, but look, I don't know how to explain it. Twilight shook her head. They were all rarely insistent. Rainbow Dash scowled. Well, they're all wrong. I've been to Pinky's farm. At Twilight's curious look, she shrugged. I went to her when her mom was sick a few years ago. Why? So you met them, Twilight said urgently. Well, duh. For a moment, Rainbow Dash's face flickered into sympathy as she recalled Pinky's frozen smile and a bedroom door that remained shut. Even she called to the occupant within. It was one of the few times she had ever seen Pinky generally sad and had struck with her. It wasn't pretty. Her mom didn't want to see her, and her dad was a dud, but her sisters were pretty cool. Then all this makes even less sense. Twilight threw up her forehooves. Why would there be a topography center lie? Their records are second to none. Those can't be wrong. Whatever. Rainbow Dash's wings vibrated with pent-up frustration and her ability to do anything. She felt like she had been cooped up all day. Actually, she had been cooped up all day. Add to her worry over Pinky, in royally and royally sucks. Fury and frustration tightened in her stomach like she had swallowed hot metal and was solidifying in her guts. She needed to do something, not just sit around and waiting for something to happen on its own. That wasn't how she was. Weird. Rainbow Dash, fastest Pegasus in all of Equestria, did not just wait for things to happen. She made them happen. You know what? The rock farm isn't far from here. If you're flying, I'll go tell them Pinky's in the hospital. At least then she would be going to do something. Inactivity was her worst nemesis, along with math and alfalfa. And if she got a flaming argument with Pinky's parents, well, then so much better. She would rather go argue with some pony she barely knew and explode at her friends. And right now, she was worried about the exact same thing what may happen if she stayed with them. Rainbow Dash, wait! Applejack started. You guys can wait, I'm going. With that, she cantered to the door, turning the last few feet into a defiant glide that took her outside into the sky, ever-increasing speed, so she could almost convince herself the wetness of her cheeks from just facing to the wind. Almost. Twilight stand in the glass doors as they slid shut behind her friend. I can't believe she just did that, Applejack said incredulously. She just up and left, and after all her belly aching about getting here in the first place. Please don't think badly of her. Fluttershy's stare remained fixed on the visible sky blue for the doors. Rainbow Dash is upset. She doesn't want to deal feeling helpless that very well. As the pony who had known her for the longest, Fluttershy spoke with a quiet conviction no pony questioned. Applejack blew out a sigh. We're all upset, Sugar Cube, but we don't all have to run on top of the hat. Applejack paused. This is the point where Pinky would say that my hat would drop just because it's still on my head, she muttered. She turned her face away. Dang it, how the hay she did things get this bad so gosh darn fast. She was fine yesterday, and maybe she wasn't 100% fine when we saw her today, but she wasn't, she trailed off. They were all asking themselves the same question. How far was Pinky's decline going to go? I don't want to go home, Spike piped up. I'm just saying, even if we can't actually go up and see Pinkie Pie, I don't want to go home yet. Me neither. Rarity cleared the revealing croak from her throat, and more emphatically, if Pinky is here, then I'm staying here. I'd like to stay too, Fluttershy added, but I should probably go home and feed my animals first. As if some pony had questioned her loyalty, she grabbed. I mean, the thing is, I last fed them before lunchtime, and even though I fed them plenty, we went straight to the library after we left there, and I haven't been home since. They're probably very hungry now, and Miss Mouse recently had a litter of babies, so I should check on them too. Not to mention I have to change the dressings on Miss Vixen's foot, and, I'm sorry. No need to apologize, Fluttershy, said Applejack. You want some pony to walk with you? Many who's make the light work them all. I'm pretty good at changing bandages on squirmy critters after the one hurt their paws last spring. Thank you, but I'm fine. You should go and stay here in case. Fluttershy seemed to unable to finish her sentence. She bit her lip. I'll be as quick as I can. If something happens, I'll come and fetch you, Fluttershy, Twilight said. Thinking of the teleportation spell she used several times, teleporting another pony with her left her nauseous and dizzy. But if anything happened to Pinky, speed would be supersistic comfort. I promise. Thank you, Fluttershy said gratefully. I'll be back soon. Cupcake nuzzled Pumpkin's stomach, making the tiny foal giggle. Oh, I could just eat you up. Has there ever been a foal as cute as you? Has there ever? Right here, chuckled Carrot, cradling Pound. The yellow colt nodded, each blink lasting longer than a preceding one. Oh yes, Cup exclaimed, in a mock of surprise. So there is. She applied the talcum powder and finished putting the pumpkin on a fresh diaper. All done. No more stinky. Pumpkin barbled and chewed on her forehoof. Carrot pulled a face. Well, almost. He indicated the scented plastic baggie containing the old diaper, which was not as quite as good as keeping as the bad odors as is advised. Cup had placed it onto the side of the changing mat. Now it was steadily filling the room with conflicting smells. Yes, and I'll get rid of that, shall I? She said shrilly. We'll need to get going. It was lucky that her neighbors had agreed to babysit while they went to visit Pinky in the hospital. Lyra wasn't the most reliable pony in the world, but Bonbon's no-nonsense practically balanced out their partner's enthusiasm. Privately, Bonbon had confessed to Cup that they someday hoped for a foal on their own, so they could have been more than happy to agree when Carrot asked. Since there were two of them, and especially since Lyra was a unicorn, the first hoof experience of growing up magical. The cakes felt assured that they would be able to cope with Pound and Pumpkin's quirks. Carrot buckled Pound into the stroller, and Cup left them to do the same with the pumpkin while to dispose of the diaper. She held it out from her, foreleg locked so the baggie wouldn't touch her. She knew it was unlikely to spontaneously burst open and cover her daughter's excrement. But you just couldn't help but superstitions. She loved her loved ones with all of her heart and soul, but even she had her limits. She was so focused on the task that she didn't even see the black lines wriggling across the ceiling. They jerked and jolted over her head, some concealed in recesses of shadow and some blankly twitching past the light fitting, and a few stragglers hurried to catch up as they crawled like convulsive caterpillars all over the doorframe and into the twins' room. Cup gratefully plonked down the lid of the trash can and headed back inside. She climbed the stairs slowly, knowing that she'd be puffing and panting if she took it at speed. Carrot always said that he loved her no matter what she looked like, and it was hard to say no when Pinkie presented her with the mist cakes. She had called those too misshapen, burnt, or just plain ugly to sell in the calf. Nevertheless, sometimes she wished she had the energy to take up jogging or join in exercise classes to get rid of her post-pregnancy pudge. At least most of it is post-pregnancy, she thought wearily. Okay, some of it is. A little bit. A very little bit. Putting the unwelcome thoughts of her expanding waistline from her mind, she called, "Honey bun, are you all ready to go?" "Go?" Carrot called back. "Go where?" "To see Pinkie, of course." Cup stepped up from the door to find Carrot unstrapping Pound from the stroller. Pumpkin got herself into it with her hind legs, thrust her stubby forelegs into the bars of the playpen at her mother. Carrot frowned at her in late confusion. "Pinkie? Who's Pinkie?" "What?" Cup laughed, assuming she was joking. "Carrot, don't be silly." "I'm not being silly, Newcombs." He continued to look generally puzzled. Carrot was a sweetie with a mind of the sphere of a heart of gold, but she couldn't keep the secrets and was worst liar in all of Equestria. Cup could sincerely see through untruth like it was a cellophane. She inhaled sharply as she looked into his eyes. He wasn't lying. He really didn't know what she was talking about. "Pinkie Pie," she said slowly, as if that might jog his memory. "Our apprentice. She lives in a room, rents the room upstairs. She's lived with us for almost 2 years. She's in the hospital, remember? I think you're the big one, honey bun. We never managed to rent the room upstairs, remember? We tried, but no pony wanted to live in a place where we start work at 5 a.m. He shook his head. "And our apprentice isn't called Pinkie Pie, and she sure isn't in the hospital. She finished her shift and went home, remember?" "What?" Panic salutes through the ice water. But in the playpen, Pumpkin's jabbering look on the fretful edge. Her little horn glowed like she was about to have another magic surge. "Uh-oh!" Carrot left Pound buckled into the stroller and hurried to pick up her daughter. "Come here, you. Don't worry. Daddy's here." He picked her up and stroked her at the back like she needed to be winded. Over soothing Pumpkin, she knew she only grew agitated, reaching desperately for her mother. Or that wasn't the Cup assumed until she realized Pumpkin wasn't looking directly at her. She followed her foal's gaze, gasping when she saw the massive jittering black lines on the wall. She battered away, putting herself further into the room, closer to her family. Instinctively, her stance became protective. She head lowered and hooves planted wide. "Carrot, what are those things?" He started to turn. A few black lines scuttled from his mane and crawled into the air like worms through soil. Cup shrieked. "They're on you!" "They are?" Carrot looked at her, and then the walls where they pointed. He blinked, and the sight line was steady, undistracted stare. "Honey bun, are you okay? You're acting awfully strange." "I can't see them," she thought. Pound began to cry, his little wings flapping so hard to extricate himself from his seatbelt. The wriggling black lines were forming a pattern. Cup was about to shout for Carrot to run when she realized that she recognized the shapes and had formed. Cakes. She stared at the mounting horror bewilderment as more squirmed into her place on the side of her surname. The cake's apprentice. The words trembled as if alive with wriggling, jiggling, squiggling little whatever those things were. Another word had formed. Is. Carrot, she said hoarsely. We have to run. On the far side of the wall, yet more of them came together. Very happily together. We have to take the foals and run, now! She grabbed for Pound. Panic made her fumble the clasp of his safety belt. The lines were making a sentence, starting either and working their way inward. They were silent, but the words they made rang through their head like a knell. And they work. She yanked at Pound so roughly she fell backwards, and he cried harder in her grasp. Honey Bun, Carrot exclaimed. What's gotten into you? Pumpkin burbled angrily, and when her tiny horn glowing like she was trying to protect her oblivious father. It's called. Carrot! Cup pulled at him and ran for the door. Follow me, quick! Wait! Too late. The last words had formed into a noise like a happy sigh. The whole sentence stopped wriggling. The edges smoothed and the words became as easy to read as type on a printed page. The sentence peeled off for the wall for a wild single frozen moment. It hung in the air, and then shot towards the running mare and wrapped around her an explosion of black ink. Pumpkin screamed. Rainbow Dash soared through the air, so high that the clouds brushed against her belly and countryside, rapidly past below. She would be there in no time at this rate. The rock family where Pinkie had grown up was, as Pinkie herself had always put it, as a stone throw from Ponyville. In reality, it was more than that. Distance posed no problem for the fastest Pegasus in Equestria. She swooped out of the cloud bank to get her bearings, realizing she had traveled even further than she had thought. It was amazing that you could do when you feel motivated. The rock farm was just over the next rise. She crested expectantly. The quarry wasn't there. Rainbow Dash pulled up a short huh as she circled the area, thinking she must have missed it or not gone far enough. She had been there only once before. It was unlikely it was possible she had gotten the location wrong. She hadn't. There was no quarry and definitely no rock farm anywhere to be found. Green fields stretched as far as the eye could see. Twilight's words came back to her. There is not, nor there ever has been, a rock farm belonging to a family named Pie. What in Celestia's name is going on here? Rainbow Dash asked in the empty air. The sun was still up but beginning to make its descent to dusk, casting long shadows across the land. She did not circulate to come up with the same result. Fields of freshly harvested crops, but no rock farm. This makes no sense. How does a whole quarry just disappear into thin air? And what about Pinkie Pie's family? If their farm has gone without trace, what about them? She asked about the farmhouse at the edge of the one field and powered towards it. Maybe the ponies inside would know something. Keep your mane on, shouted a gruff voice as she pounded on the door. It was revealed to be an aging brown stallion in the black hat with a pristine white band around it. She recognized him immediately. It was hard to forget some pony who made your friend cry. Mr. Pie? Rainbow Dash exclaimed. He eyed her suspiciously. He was still chewing the stalk of grass at the time. Except this time it just wasn't grass. It was a scrawny stalk of wheat. Can't you read the sign? He pointed at the little cardboard sign that got to the door. No hawkers, circulators, or sale ponies. I'm not selling anything. Do you recognize me? They only met once, but Rainbow Dash knew her name and mane and tail and made their standout ponies memories. Not a scrap of recognition showed his face. Can't say that I do. I'm Pinkie Pie's friend. Who? She scowled. It was back to this. Pinkie has essentially excommunicated by her family for choosing to leave the farm. Her father had called it shunning, which Pinkie had explained meant that she pretty much didn't exist to him anymore. Apparently having party-themed cutie mark tolerable enough to point, but choosing to outlive the dreams that opened up was not. The whole thing made Rainbow Dash want to turn around and buck him, but that would not get her the answers that she needed. Look, I know you're trying to pretend you don't have a fur daughter, but I'm here to tell you she's real sick in the hospital, and you need to go see her. And when I mean real sick, I mean real sick. Where the heck is your rock farm? She sucked in a much-needed breath. Rock farm? Mr. Pie said laconically. What kind of dumb idea is that? Who farms rocks? You do, or you did. Something real screwy's going on here, and hey, Blinky? Rainbow Dash caught the sight of Pinkie's sister. Gratitude swept through her. Blinky was the only pony who acknowledged Pinkie's during their last visit. She had chased him down and pushed a brown paper bag package into Pinkie's hooves which later turned out to be family photos of their father, who had tried to throw away. Blinky, who had been crossed in the hall, trotted over to the door. Yes? It's me, Rainbow Dash. At Blinky's blank look, she had added, Pinky's friend. Blinky's expression could have not been emptier. It was as someone had punctured her heart and let all the emotions seep away long ago, leaving her with no resource but a blank indifference. I'm sorry, but I have no idea what you're talking about, miss. Sure you do, Rainbow Dash insisted angrily. She stopped when her eye caught the wall of old framed photos behind the two earth ponies and recognized some. They were the package Blinky had given over. Now instead, carefully glued albums into Pinky's room above Sugar Cube Corner, that they were displayed proudly on their wall. Yet it was not that they made the words die in Rainbow Dash's throat. Pinky was not in any of them. Even the ones Rainbow Dash recognized did not have them in there. Rainbow Dash, I knew where she'd be. I could some point the exact same spot in her hoof, but there was no sign of Pink Philly of any of them. Are you alright, miss? Blinky asked, as if it did not matter one way or another. Rainbow Dash backed away. I gotta go. She ran down the path and launched herself into the sky, breaking a sharp turn towards Ponyville. This wasn't too weird. She had to tell her friends fast. Luckily fast is what she did best. Red Heart pulled the food trolley down the little corridor in the isolation unit, opening the door at the opposite end and opened with a rump. It involved some complicated near acrobatics to hold down open with one hoof while she dragged the trolley through, swinging into the room in a tight arc before letting the door shut again. The breathing mask, it would have been necessary, but it sure made tasks more difficult when she couldn't grasp things with her mouth and all use her hooves for walking. Hey there, she said with a smile the mask concealed. Dinner time. Since you didn't get anything to eat earlier, I figured you must be pretty hungry by now. She raised her head. Pinky? A dome of restrictive magic shimmered down over the bed. Since her back condition and possibly the seizures prevented Pinkie Pie from being restrained by normal means. The hospital had been forced to come up with an alternative. The effect, Red Heart noted, was a gigantic food processor over the huge single pink cupcake. Pinkie Pie? She pulled the trolley closer. Would you like something to eat? Pinkie lay on her front, her face buried in the pillow. She lifted at her head in Red Heart's approach, looking befuddled. She blinked and shook her head as if to clear. Her eyes twitched. Oh, hi there. Deciding to remain cheerful in hopes it would cheer Pinkie, Red Heart presented the trolley. I have daisy sandwiches, daffodil pasta salad, and even some sweetened clover patties. If you're still hungry afterwards, there's lemon surprise muffins, red velvet cupcakes, or fruit. She smiled again, hoping it would reach her eyes. I'm sure the hospital food can't compare to your home baking, but for what it is, it's not half bad. Pinkie blinked at her. Do you have any dew soup? Dew soup? Red Heart had heard of it, but she never actually tried it. The soup was made from water morning dew as specialty disc, served almost exclusively in the Cloudsdale and parts of Canterlot and Manhattan. Typically areas were populated by Pegasi. The soup had some quality and made it appealing to a Pegasi palate that tasted like boiled dishwater to all other ponies. No, I don't. Oh, Pinkie lowered her head to her chin pillow. I like dew soup. It might even be my favorite. Do you think you like it? I'm not sure. It's one of those hazy things. A lot of the things the others know me are becoming clearer now, but some are still hazy. She made a face. I wonder wherever I'll know some of them. I think they all got left behind. If you break the two mirrors and break up the pieces, you don't get two reflections, but the picture is wrong. It's the same jigsaws. Nothing exactly fits anymore, so you'll have to stomp on the pieces to make them fit when they don't want to. And the picture at the end is weird. She giggled. Stomp, 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 and find a friend to glomp. A frown seasoned her brow. What is a glump anyhow? Red Heart wasn't sure what to make of that. Then again, she often had no idea what Pinkie Pie was talking about. Would you like a sandwich? She asked. Pinkie's left ear flicked independent on the right. I can't. She indicated the shimmering dome. It's in this case. Climb on top of the cabinet again. Which I won't. But they want it to be extra specialty. Specially sure. Because I might fall off and hurt myself, because I can't. She stopped abruptly. I can't. Her eyes became unfocused. Through she tried. Whatever she was trying to say would not come out. Instead, her body started to rock from side to side as she covered her head with her forelegs and moaned. Ah! She had elongated a vowel for so much unrecognizable. Should. A strangled scream burst from her. Oh no, not again. However, this time Redheart had came prepared. She grabbed the hyperonic from the lower shelf of the trolley, slipped in the protective plastic from the needle, and made sure there were no air bubbles. Satisfied, she scrubbed the hoof through the circle of the clear floor that marked the limits of a magical barrier. From within, no pony could touch or affect it, but a single break in the line from the side could ease the effects until some pony connected it up again with the charmed magnetic chalk. Though the circle had been drawn by a medical mage, and it had been specially designed so that the hospital staff or unicorn member could dissolve it in case of emergencies like this. Hold still, Pinky, Redheart said, keeping her voice calm and level. This will only pitch a little. She reached for one of her forelegs clamped over Pinky's head. Pinky arched her back in a fresh scream. She flung her lungs on forelegs out, knocking the hyperonic from Redheart's grasp. Redheart scrambled to pick it up as Pinky rocked upwards, her head thrown back against a recognizable scream. Pinky! Redheart shouted over the noise. Pinky! She was silenced by a noise that sounded like terrifying fabric. Thick black liquid splattered on the wall as Pinky's back tore open, as if she was being flayed by an invisible whip. Her scream became a choking gasp as the first one, and the two splits appeared, shearing from the shoulder and from the hip, and something pushed through the flesh, twitching and writhing like maggots breaking free of a hollowed corpse. She leaned forward, convulsing with each deep, ragged sobs. Finally, a wet rip, something unpeeled beneath her coat and stood on her end. First one, the second pushed free, flinging the gouts of liquid into the air, some landing on the ceiling and dripping from splotched red and black. Some of them landed on Redheart, who suffered from their own scream revolution and fell backwards as she tried to shake off the piece of covered in pink fur that landed overhead. Code Red ID Redheart, she shrieked. The security magic glowed and the alarm started to wail. Pinky panted, hunched over on the bed. The veins poking out of her back fluttered like they were testing on the air after being trapped so long inside her. Rivulets of dark liquid ran over her sides and dripped onto the bedclothes. Redheart was frozen in shock as Pinky raised her head and turned around to look at her. I knew I should be able to fly, she panted. Knew it, she giggled. It sounded wrong, and her face fell panicked surface in her expression. She leapt off the bed, though she should have not been able to move with those injuries. Redheart scrambled away, but Pinky bounded over and cupped the nurse's face into her forehooves. If you try to push two things together, they both break, she said in a panic. She spoke using the same inflections that she had when Redheart had found her lying on the side. That's why you can't smush the whole words together. But doing a price meal doesn't work either. They both can't exist, it's not possible. But they want want me to be there as much as they set in motion, and we're breaking. I'm breaking and her eyes became unfocused again. And they're right, of course they are. It all has to be, and it should been, before the beginning. All of it. She dropped Redheart and ran for the window. All of it. Wait, no! Redheart cried. Pinky crashed through the glass, but instead of plummeting, she picked up the new things that she flew, and she had been doing all her life. Redheart hastened for the window. However, by the time she got there, Pinkie Pie was nowhere to be seen. Redheart turned and the door crashed open a few slight ponies hunted in, demanding to know what had happened to the clamor of overlapping voices. The soaked ceiling, walls, and bed didn't even half of what had happened, but the truth was it's so far-fetched that Redheart's mind did as so many when faced with the truth too impossible to process. It snagged on a single, insignificant thing, which she had noticed as she literally watched a pony's mind snap in front of her. Pinky's eyes had been bright purple. What had happened, Redheart? Dr. Stable pushed his way through and turned to face him. What in the name of Celestia happened here? Where is she? His eyes flickered to the broken window. How did she jump? Redheart stuttered. On the wall behind the gathered ponies, small black lines crawled silently in formation. There you go, Miss Vixen. Fluttershy stroked the fox's head when she tried to take her hoof away. The obstinately wild animal pushed against her, urging her to come to gentle ministrations. Fluttershy smiled. Your word is healing nicely. You should be able to go home by the end of the week. Wouldn't that be loving? The fox gave her an equivalent look. Now, Fluttershy chided. You know you're staying here and identity is not an option. You need to go back. If you'll stay with me, you'll forget how to fend for yourself. The oath of mutual protection isn't meant to extend beyond my cottage and garden. It isn't the natural order of things. That's important to maintain. Even if there were parts of it I don't like either, she added in a sad mutter. A long time ago she had been forced to accept the roles of predator and prey were not something she could ignore or prevent in nature. However, she had tried to at first. Her heartfelt wish was to take care of all animals in such a way that none of them needed to hunt each other in order to survive. But when she had come to accept this simply wasn't tenable. She had tried for so long, but months of trying and failing to halt that ceaseless cycle had threatened to break her until she accepted the unpleasant truth. Nature had created a pattern of life and death, and she couldn't stop it because she hated the idea of former patients being part of it. In the end, she had compromised by creating the oath, which she had set up in her cottage as a place apart from the natural order, where predators and prey agreed to leave each other alone until the day they departed back to their real lives. The fox looked away. Fluttershy chuckled under her narrow chin, bringing the face around. It may seem like a better option now, but trust me, when springtime comes you'll want to go find a mate, which means going back to the wild. How would you feel if I didn't feed your babies because you've grown too soft to hunt, or just plain forgotten how? The fox's snap eared back. He chuffed out low in her throat, staring deep into Fluttershy's eyes. Oh, sweetie, I'm not asking you to like, but I'm glad you understand. Fluttershy could not explain to any pony else how exactly she communicated with animals. It wasn't magic or such, but it wasn't the exact same as she talked with ponies earlier. It was a strange combination of actual speech and body language, facial expression and intuition at that. Once upon a time, Twilight might have wanted to strap her into some machine test, and the net effect was Fluttershy arrived at a perfect understanding of even non-verbal creatures that she never really wanted to think about. Perhaps some part of that was fear, and of that she picked apart her abilities and thought too much about how they worked. She forgot how to do them, but she preferred to think that she simply didn't need to know why's and how's, but she did need to see her talents far more important than how they functioned. The fox yawned, forcing Fluttershy to release her chin. The cottage wasn't full, as it had been in the past, and as there were enough animals in residence that had taken Fluttershy over an hour to feed and check on them all. Miss Mouse's babies were snug in their nest, which only were inches from the mass of straw and grass Miss Vixen had claimed as bed. The fox had tried not to eat them once. The parrot, with the even broken wing, was nearly ready for its splint to be removed, and Fluttershy was fairly certain that the crow had been attacked desperately by a starving eagle, was ready to be released. She would give him one more day to be absolutely sure he was recovered, and then take him back to the spot where she had found him, and someone had knocked loudly on the door. "Oh!" Fluttershy exclaimed. She wasn't expecting anyone. All of her friends were at the hospital, and no pony else ever called on her. She was sucked out of breath, wondering whatever one of her friends was on the table, bringing her terrible news about Pinkie Pie. He hurried over to answer. "Coming!" Miss Vixen lifted her head. The birds on stand hopped and chittered. Fluttershy felt something grab one of her hind legs and looked down. She saw Angel's tiny arms wrapped around her fetlock and shook his head, meaning to clear her. "I have to answer it, Angel. It might be Twilight or Applejack, or Rarity or even Rainbow Dash." She stepped forward. Angel was lifted on the floor and refused to let go. "Now don't be a silly bunny. She awkwardly raised her hind leg and stretched over her neck to pluck him off by the scruff of his neck. Of course, contrary as ever, he hopped straight off the chair which she disposed him. He followed her as she went to the door and pulled it open. It wasn't Twilight or Applejack, Rarity or Rainbow Dash. "Oh my goodness, Pinky! Whatever happened to you?" Fluttershy gasped.
Pinky stood on her hind legs, forelegs braced on either side of the doorframe as to keep herself from falling over. She was panting, face scrunched with all effort of sucking enough oxygen. More disturbing, however, were red and black streaks stubbed across her coat and mane. "You're actually here," she gasped. Each breath was labored. I wasn't sure you would be, but I had a feeling." Her words dissolved into a hackling cough. "What in the name of Celestia are you doing here? You're supposed to be at the hospital." All sorts of dreadful possibilities raced through Fluttershy's mind to explain why Pinky was there and what was wrong with her. And she was standing up, a bit unstably, but hadn't the other ponies in the hospital said she couldn't stand at all without a tremendous pain? "Come inside quick. Are you hurt?" "What am I saying? You're bleeding." The animals in the cottage began to chatter at the scent of blood. Suddenly Angel leapt in front of Fluttershy, paws raised in bizarre approximation as martial arts pose. He glared at Pinkie Pie, and she stared back at him blankly. Recognition clicked into place a few seconds later. "Oh," she croaked. "Oh, of course, everyone's got a pet here, don't they?" "That was only Diana before she didn't work out. I think the giant puppy was before here. My pet is here." She seemed to ponder deeply. "A toothless alligator? That can't be right." "Pinkie Pie," Fluttershy said wearily. The setting sun didn't quite seem to turn Pinkie into a silhouette, but it did cast an odd shadow across her face as she swiveled to look left and right on the side of the cottage, and then leaned back to gaze outside. "Your garden is so useful," she exclaimed. Like this was a bad thing. "Where are all the flowers?" "Flowers? You have to have flowers. That's your thing. Or was it supposed to be? Not vegetables in a chicken coop. You don't keep chickens. That's not right." Pinky. Fluttershy's eyes widened. There was something very, very wrong with Pinky. It wasn't just her staring eyes and the jagged edge in her voice, though those were strange enough. Fluttershy knew Pinky was given to say things others didn't understand. She remembered all too well of how miscommunicating during the Pepper Sprite incident had already ruined all of Ponyville. But this felt different. Pinky herself felt different. I think you should come inside and clean off all." Pinky vaulted away towards the vegetable garden, almost faster than Fluttershy's eyes could follow. "That blood! Hey, Pinky!" "Wrong!" Pinky dived into the tall leafy plants. At the top of her mane visible, she began pulling them and tossing them away. "It's all wrong! How could they get something so basic so wrong? No wonder this world needs to be fixed." "Pinkie Pie, please!" Fluttershy ducked in to avoid being hit by a flying turnip. "Please stop." Why did they change it? Why it shouldn't be this way? Flowers are not vegetables. How difficult was that to get it right? Turnips were followed by carrots and potatoes, still covered in clods of soil. They whizzed past Fluttershy, forcing her to take the air to avoid them. "Pinkie Pie," she called down, "please stop ruining my garden. I need those vegetables to feed my animal friends." Pinkie froze and she looked up at Fluttershy, eyes wide. There was something really wrong with her eyes, but Fluttershy had no time to figure out what it was. They were rushing up towards her. "You can fly!" Pinkie pointed accusingly hoof at her. "That's why I'm an earth pony. You got wings instead of me. 2 unicorns, 2 earth ponies, 2 Pegasi. The perfect balance, except that they gave the wrong of us use of wings." Fluttershy gasped. "Pinkie, you're flying!" It was a stunning yet gruesome sight. Pinkie Pie had wings. She had wings. It wasn't the first time Fluttershy had seen one of her earthbound friends flying, but nothing like the beautiful butterfly wings Rarity had worn for the young flyers' competition. Some of Pinkie's feathers were brittle and with dried blood, and yet it was easy to see her wings were not pink like the rest of her. Around her shoulder flaps of skin and pink fur swung in time with each angry white flap. Yet if Pinkie noticed or felt any pain, she didn't show it in her expression. "I was meant to be a flyer. That's how it's meant to be. That's a big thing to fix. I mean, I'm a main character. Putting something big so significant right." She wrinkled her nose.
Yep, difficult, but I guess it worked because I have my wings back. She twirled in midair, showing off the horrible things. Oh my! The words emerged as a horrified whisper. Fluttershy edged away. Soon everything will be the way it was meant to be. Pinky nodded. Her left eye twitched. You know, at first I thought it was a mistake. You can't just replace one thing with another. Not when the universe is already established like this one. At the beginning when things were still flux and nothing had decided yet, maybe it would work out, but how? I thought they were crazy, she giggled. It sounded like a force in thinking, like someone pouring beads in a glass. But I guess the whole fourth wall thing was useful after all. I could see the bigger picture now. I didn't always understand what was going on, but glimpses are as good as staring contests. Pinky frowned at the contemplatively. Or was it me who didn't always understand? I guess it really doesn't matter anymore. The other me, it's all the same difference now. Pinky, what happened to you? Fluttershy asked. She had to find Twilight. This was obviously some kind of evil magic. A curse or spell or something. Who could have thought of done this to poor Pinkie Pie? Who would have done anything to her? Every pony loved Pinkie Pie. The thought of that someone would do this to her, harm to her, was absurd. I could see it all now, Pinkie laughed. They have some practical ideas of how things are meant to be. It took some time figuring out to make it all work, but you know what it is? It's possible after all. Pinky, you see? It's all fictional. I'm fictional, you're fictional, the whole Ponyville is fictional. Heck, the whole world of Questia is fictional, and fiction can be changed. Pinky's grin wrapped almost all the way around her face, like a hyperactive puppy leash around the tree. Twilight would understand. She loves books and words and reading and writing in the pen. Pinky stuck a hoof in the air dramatically, as if ordering the crowd, is mightier than the sword. Fluttershy didn't understand. All she knew was that something was seriously wrong with her friend, and no matter how horrified or scared she was, her overwhelming compulsion was trying to help her. The thing is, I was the problem, Pinky went on. I acquired the most changes because I deviated so much from the original version of me. We're all problems, really. All because something is fictional doesn't mean it isn't real. It's all far gone too far, you see. We're in so many heads and hearts as every versions of us we are now. The whole beyond a world is ours too well as we know. You can't just write it that way. Nope, nope, nope. You have to make it work in context. You have to make the changes one by one. And that gets, she plucked at the piece of loose flesh dangling from his shoulder blade. Gooey. Pinkie Pie. I'm not even the right color. Can you believe that? Her left eye twitched again. It didn't seem possible, but her grin stretched even further. But I could fix that. Fluttershy's stomach nodded as Pinky reached behind herself, grasped one of the flats of pellet, and pulled. Like wallpaper, it peeled up back before tearing off completely at the base of her wings. Pinky examined it for a moment and then shrugged and threw into the vegetable garden. She reached for another. No! Instinctively, Fluttershy shot towards her. She grabbed Pinky's forelegs to stop them. Blood and black liquid smeared on her own hooves, and she forced herself to ignore it. You mustn't! But I'm not meant to be pink, Pinky protested. It doesn't hurt, I'm told you. I'm fictional. Once I figured out that everything else makes more sense, fictional things can't feel pain because the pain is fictional too. So it's not really real. She sighed and shook her head. It'll be so much better for them when they figure out they're fictional too. I wonder someday, maybe someone from this world beyond theirs would make them understand too. Pinky, there's something seriously wrong with you. Fluttershy swallowed the bile threatening to back of her throat. We need to get Twilight. She'll know what to do. And when she's at the hospital, which is even better. The doctors there can take a look at your injuries and... Oh, no. Pinky sing-songed, shaking her head. I just came from there. Besides, no pony remembers I was there anymore. I didn't suit the storyline for them to be in the hospital, so they fixed that. They? Fluttershy echoed helplessly. Pinky had allowed her own hooves to remain held down, but Fluttershy was loath to take a firm grip in because she hurt her friend. She was close enough, however, to see Pinky's eyes look stranger than before. They were the wrong color, but wrongness didn't stem from that. Their gaze seemed to be coming from a long way away, jittering some kind of distant place that Fluttershy couldn't reach. She looked unhinged. Pinky tilted her head to one side. They're the ones who've been putting everything back the way it is in the back of the beginning. The way things were, it was meant to be editorial, manton and copyright laws, and all that ruined everything. They're the ones with words. Pinky, I don't understand, Fluttershy tried, but failed to keep the tremble in her voice. It wasn't as simple as they thought it would be. They don't think magic exists in the other world, Pinky laughed. Boy, they're in for a shock when they find out that it took from them an effort to even get so much right. And even though what they think they know, you can't change your world you go in. You have to change it in increments. Little itty bitty chitty chitty bang bang pieces. One bit of time so it will be shown bond doesn't go well bang, Pinky chuckled. You see, changes is good. I would have known the increments before, but I don't think so. Pinky, I mean look, they're doing it right now. She pulled a hoof free over Fluttershy's shoulder. What? Fluttershy followed the line of her hoof and gasped. Tiny black worms wriggled across the front of her cottage. They twined out of the honeysuckle and ivy, slipping it between the pieces of straw and attached roof. Some kind of ink licked up quivered the place. The others crawled towards each other. In front of the pretty cottage is a lovely Angel Bunny was in the doorway, pointing up and hopping up and down. Apparently he had been trying to get her attention for a while, but she seemed too preoccupied to notice. Fluttershy released Pinkie Pie and swooped down to scoop him up. As her forelegs closed around him, the last black lines met and the entire collection stilled. The garden. The words slid off the cottage, hovered over the air for a moment, and then shot towards the garden. When they met the sticks for tomato plants and they exploded like punctured balloon, spraying what looked like black ink everywhere it touched. Vegetables were rivered and flowers burst to life. Roses, daffodils, forget-me-nots, and dozens of others Fluttershy couldn't name erupted from their carefully planted furrows, submerging in the ground of riot color. The pen is mightier than the sword, Pinky cowed gleefully. See? Didn't I tell you? It's not perfect. They still need a helping hoof here and there, but they're putting everything back the way it's supposed to be. Who's doing this? Fluttershy begged. Who are they? She nuzzled Angel, taking in comfort in his warm body and familiar smell. What kind of terrible magic was this? The fans of True Vision, was Pinky's obstinate answer. She had spoke and tore off another strip of flesh from her back and then took at them for a long time. They had to work it all out, you see. They had to get fans who had preferred alternate versions of us, but the True Vision will never win out at the end. The creator wanted this way, and they'll make a vision a reality. You've seen the power of words first, Hoof, now. She pulled a ragged piece of fur at her collarbone. It came away with a white rip, as if she was tearing the sleeve of an ugly dress. Ah, that's better. Instead of the bared muscle beneath the white fur, it smarts a bit, but it's worth it at the end, don't you agree? It should be Sparkler would say. White isn't so seasoned. Pinky pursed her lips. Although actually she'll be blue, so blue would be in the season. Please, Pinkie Pie, stop, you're hurting yourself, Fluttershy begged. But I'm not hurting myself. I'm fixing myself. Another rip, another sloppy impact on below the ground. Miss Vixen had limped out of the house along with several animals. They sniffed at the pieces of pink and black and red, all of them growled and back away. Oh, I'll have to clear those away when I'm done. Fluttershy could do nothing as Pinky pulled and tugged and ripped at herself. Neither she could leave. She hung in the air, almost forgetting to flap her wings. This can't be happening. This cannot be happening. But it was. It really was. Miss Vixen snarled the last thing to fall, sickly detached face of the pink pony. Pinky rubbed at her white cheeks. Oh, that's better. What do you think? Fluttershy whimpered. Aw, don't cry. You see, you'll think of life as we know it now. You'll love it when it's through these things I know do. In this world, I come to Cloudsdale and my family talk to me and still get to be a baker and throw parties and have fun. Ooh, and everything. And you have to be a fan, dabby, doozy, pretty garden, and you won't have to worry about flying anymore. And ooh! She clasped her hoofs together in a sudden thought and dove into the ground, disappearing amongst the flowers. Her disappearance broke Fluttershy away from her trance. She whirled into the animals now gathered outside the cottage. Run, oh please run away, little friends. They looked up in mute shock. Was she throwing them out? Run someplace safe. I'm going to get my friends. My, other friends. They'll fix this. I hope, she added in silent desperation. Whatever this is, magic words and true visions and everything else Pinky had said sloshed about in her brain in soup of fear and panic. She flapped her wings, headed for the hospital. Oh no you don't! A disapproving white shape rammed her. Fluttershy let out a woof and expelled air and dropped a few meters. Angel, are you alright? She gasped, shaking and showing her a little usual self-confidence. He nodded and burrowed against her chest. She tightened her hold on him and tried to fly on. Why don't you know it's rude to leave a party so early? Especially the world to make it a better party. The white whistle came at her again, and it twisted and shot past. It's not fair. You ducked. For the first time ever, Fluttershy regretted living outside town. While the privacy and proximity of her animal friends' homes were useful, she had no neighbors and nowhere near for shout help. Pinky, stop it! Please! You'll hurt Angel Bunny! Whoopsie doodle! Pinky covered in midair. You better give him to me for the next part. What? Reflectively, Fluttershy's hold and tightened. Well, you don't want him to fall, do you? Pinky said a matter of facility. Silly filly, I'll take him back to your cottage and make sure he's safe while we fix you. Fix me? Fluttershy's heart beat against her ribs like an attic-trapped bird. Well, of course, didn't I say they need a helping hoof when it comes to us? It's easy for them to change other ponies' minds about us so they know what we've always been for what we are or will we be. Wow, that's a little confusing now that I think about it. Anyhow, it's not easy on with us. We're the main characters. If you want to change us, you can't pretend to change the ways. You have to make them happen so everyone can see how much better they are. Pinky beamed. It makes perfect sense. It made no sense at all. But the thing is, I'm the only one who could do the fourth wall thing. And I can tell you we're all fictional. But you won't get it. She shook away head softly. You never did all the other times I did say to break it. So you'll feel the pain because you think it's real. And I don't want that. You're my friend and that hasn't changed. Friends don't hurt each other. They help each other. And that's what I'm going to do to you. Fluttershy closed her eyes and turned a sharp circle and flew away as fast as she could. Hey! She knew Pinky was chasing her. She was trying to escape from one of her best friends in the whole world. Please, some pony, make this not be happening. White wings impact. She spun in a crazy spiral, trying to get right to herself, but another crash made it impossible. The best thing she could do was to try and land without breaking anything, as long as Pinky drove her to the ground. I'm sorry, Pinky shouted. Ridiculously, she sounded like she meant it. Fluttershy tried running. That was even less successful. Banzai! Pinky leapt at her, limbs sprayed. At the pool party would have been fun. Right now it filled Fluttershy's heart with dread. She had just enough time to throw Angel from her before Pinky landed on her. The white rabbit went rumbling ears over to tail to the bush. Good call, Pinky commented it. Now this might pinch, but the pain will go bye-bye. And when you wake up, you'll just know how you meant to be. What? Ow! Something sharp bit into Fluttershy's flank. It was followed by a warm, spreading pain. There now, that should do it. Hey! Angel came rocketed back out of the bush, connected with Pinky's head. She reeled backwards. Fluttershy staggered to her hooves and she could have swam. Everything inside of her outstretched her and was tilting carousel, spinning around like a blur of colors and textures. She fell on her knees, struggled to get up and failed, and slumped to her side. Her hypromic still struck up from behind her flank and like a flag claiming a piece of land. Now that's not very nice, she heard Pinky exclaimed, but her voice sounded like it was coming through deep water. You're part of the story too, honey bun, just like your slapstick stealth. What? The whole world swirled beneath Fluttershy and she slid off the edge into darkness. Rainbow Dash had stamina in spades, a lifetime of training regiments, crazy work schedules, and desire to prove herself was more than flight school dropout and harder muscles. She sharpened her focus and left her with the endurance of a small tank.
However, it wasn't just the stamina that was keeping her going as she neared Ponyville. Her nerves still jangled at what she had discovered about Pie Rock Farm, and her head was not stopping buzzing as she tried to figure out what was going on. She wished she had some sort of gut feeling that she could follow, but the pain in fact was not Twilight or Pinkie Pie. Her tuition sucked, and she possessed the equivalent to Pinkie's sense, and all she could do was to think of possible explanations that each seemed less and less possible. Aliens? She thought. Dismissing her idea was laid out of hoof, as it formed in her mind. No, that's just a plain stupid. How about, whoa! She flared her wings and braked as a parrot flew in her face. The heck? Watch where you're going! The parrot clacked and whistled, turning small circles in front of her. Boy, are you lost? Rainbow Dash observed. Parrots don't like Everfree. Flying through too low in Everfree space was pretty risky, and had elected to go through that route expectedly. The faster she got the news to Rock Farm to Twilight, the faster she would start making sense again. The situation might have merited the princess's involvement. The parrot squawked some more. Frantic squawking made Rainbow Dash duck before it was blinded by a noisy crow that joined in the parrot's circling. The parrot flew drunkenly, as if the wings weren't working properly. In fact, a piece of mostly unwrapped bandage trailed left alone. Rainbow Dash narrowed her eyes. Hey, I didn't see you two at Fluttershy's cottage last week. She really didn't take much notice of Fluttershy's changing rooster of patience, but she was almost sure that she had been a parrot amongst the birds of the stands. The parrot whistled triumphantly. Evidently she got it right. It turned into another small circle and then divided for the ground. The crow crawled and she followed, but it didn't do anything convenient as speak exactly the right words to tell her what they wanted, but meaning she was still in the clear. Do you want me to follow you, huh? Rainbow Dash muttered. She glanced at the light-spangled bulk of nearby Ponyville. Night had finished falling while she had made her return to the journey, and by the houses lit by enchanted lamps looked like something from a watercolor painting. Below her, not far from the edge of the forest, Fluttershy's cottage was also lit within. Huh? Fluttershy's home from the hospital? A thought hit Rainbow Dash. Or did some pony break in while she was out? Fresh anger erupted inside her, eating up her frustrations with the prospect of something she could understand and could deal with. If they have, I'll kick their butts until they're a brand new shape. She folded her wings and dived. The burst of cawing and whistling in her ears nearly knocked her off course. She aligned it with some of her dignity left, and turned to give the two birds the piece of her mind. Stopping when she spotted Fluttershy's garden, she had left it completely overgrown, which was weird because she usually kept it neat and tidy about her vegetables. Rainbow Dash didn't know one thing about growing food, saving the tips that she had picked up about fruit trees from hanging around Applejack. Did plants really grow that fast if you left them alone? The door to Fluttershy's tool shed opened. It was weird too. Fluttershy always locked it in case if some animal wandered in and accidentally licked the bottles of weed killer she kept in it. That wasn't the only door open. The front door to the cottage was wide open too. Rainbow Dash quietly pushed it, pausing in case if some pony was inside, though the crime in Ponyville was almost non-existent. The local newspaper was full of stories of Manhattan and Glasgow, where it was much more prevalent. Fluttershy lived far enough in town that it wasn't out of the question that some pony might be dumb enough to try bulging her. No pony jumped out. Rainbow Dash stepped inside and carefully to try to avoid the creaky floorboard over 2 feet of the threshold. The living room was dark, the light that she had seen come from the kitchen, judging by the soft yellow glow under the door. She crept towards it, wondering why the cottage felt so off. Realization hit her when she was halfway across the room. Place was in silence. Where were all the animals? A soft squawk and skitter of claws caught the attention. She turned and saw the cow growing accustomed of the extra deep gloom beneath the cottage's interior. The parrot and crow perched on the back of the couch. Next to him stood a tall golden rib cage. Fluttershy used to conjure jumping little birds that would otherwise fly off and exasperate in wing injuries. Fluttershy often fought with herself over it was right to use the cage or try to avoid using it when she could talk to the birds into staying put instead.
Right now it contained a very anxious white rabbit. What in the name of Celestia? Rainbow Dash hurried over. Angel's foot is on the floor and the cage had been cause of the thumping. Fluttershy would never put her precious angel bunny in the cage, not even when he was being his most obnoxious. Angel stuck a paw through his bars, jabbing at it in the direction of the kitchen door. His face, which Rainbow Dash had often seen screwed up in a temper tantrum, was now twisted with worry. What's going on in here? She wondered as she unlocked the filtering door. Angel leapt onto her bed, sprung from their bedroom door, and cannoned towards the kitchen. He literally threw himself at the door, battering at it with all four paws. Who's there? A voice called out that made Rainbow Dash's mouth drop open in shock. Pinkie Pie? She said without thinking. Uh-oh, Spaghetti-O! An unmistakable voice thrilled. You're a little early for the party. Just give me a minute. Rainbow Dash trotted over the door. Angel continued to hammer it. He jumped for the doorknob and just out of his reach. Pinkie, what's going on? Why aren't you in the hospital? Just a minute, Pinkie repeated, ultimately ignoring the question. Pinkie? With a grunt, Angel managed to hook both front paws around the doorknob, suspending himself in midair, pressing his feet against the wood. He twisted his whole body and the door clicked open and swung inward. There was a crystalline moment in which Rainbow Dash's mind attempted to eject what she was seeing. It was a contradicted everything she knew so thoroughly that her thoughts closed on themselves, forming a protective barrier of denial. For that frozen moment she registered were snapshot images that she refused from incoherent, whole purple balloons, pink hair against wood grain, and an open sewing kit of metallic gleam of red and lamplight. And then all at once the entire scene snapped together. Her mind caught up with the eyes and the gorge rose in her throat. Oh well, Pinkie sighed, except that couldn't be Pinkie Pie. Pinkie wasn't white, and she didn't have green hair, and wasn't a Pegasus. Yet the pony standing in front of the middle of the room had her voice and posture. And when she spread to her hooves and jumped up and down, she moved with the same inimitable manic energy as Pinkie. When she yelled and reminded Rainbow Dash of when Pinkie had thrown her to a thank you going with me to see my family party. Surprise! Angel raced between Rainbow Dash's hooves, towards the pony, and slumped into the chair, her torso across the kitchen table. Sweet Celestia! Rainbow Dash breathed as the last piece of her brain accepted this impossible piece of reality. I thought I'd be all done dust down here before I got to you, Not Pinkie giggled. I still have to clean up. It's not nice to make a mess in someone else's home and not clean up after yourself. Fluttershy's face was drawn. Her chest was rose and fell, but she was clearly out cold. Otherwise cruelly stitched lumps on her back and would have caused her more of mere frown. One of the bony burned lumps twitched and her eyelids flickered. She was coming around, her body trying to flap her wings that were no longer there. On her flanks she had a cut around the free pink butterflies, turning them into free red streaked flowers instead. Not Pinkie was holding the knife, but it might have had it in her hoof. Pinkie bounced in place. I told her they needed a helping hoof. Personally, I think I should be posy looking better than an earth pony. She gave another strange giggle, and when she wakes up, they'll be all posy all away. Once the body changes, it's easier to get the mind inside after all. She spun around, wagging her wings. I'm living proof, and I have to start growing wings to have holes put into my bones so I could be brought over this world. I've been knocked her out, but she wouldn't feel a thing. A set of gardening shears were visible in the sink, and a metal spatula rested in the flames of a ring-on hob. Yellow feathers stuck out from beneath the trashland kid. She had cut off Fluttershy's wings and thrown them away like garbage. Rainbow Dash only had to flap twice just to smack straight into the other Pegasus and pin her against the wall. Air left Not Pinkie's lungs, filled a giant whoosh that blew back Rainbow Dash's mane. Her breath smelled like candy. That was a pretty good surprise, Not Pinkie wheezed. Didn't it say it coming? Who are you? Rainbow Dash snarled. Why did you do this to Fluttershy? Not Fluttershy? Not Pinkie shook her head. Posy just like she originally planned it. I'm just helping them make our version our reality. She, they... What are you talking about? Can't breathe. Rainbow Dash eased off to let the other pink mare speak. Who are you? Don't you recognize me? Not Pinky looked sad. Of course not, you're not fixed yet. You think you're still Dashy? What? It won't be so bad of you. You're just a palette swap and a cutie mark. Well, newish since you already have a lightning bolt. You and Twilight are very lucky that way. Applejack is the luckiest though. Although she had to do is lose that hat of hers. Although I guess I can see about her losing a limb. I am the toughest to pull off palette swap and different race. But as you could see, they did it at the end. Who are they? Rainbow Dash demanded. And who are you? Why did you do this? She wanted to gesture at Fluttershy, but who didn't want to release her hold? For the fans. For what? And they did it for her. They love her. She was so upset when she had to leave the project, even though she had lost most of the creative control by the end anyhow. That's how the whole problem started, you know? Her losing creative control and others making decisions that contradicted what she planned. The fans just wanted to make her happy again by making us what she originally planned it. It's kind of sweet when you think about it. What? Not Pinky shook her head again and sighed indulgently. You get it, don't you? It should be Firefly. Despite Rainbow Dash pinning her forelegs, she tried to use a point upwards. But soon you will... Well, soon. Huh? Rainbow Dash risked a quick glance and froze. The words peeled out from above them, causing a mid-air just long enough for her to read before they dropped and exploded all over her in a wash of ink and destiny. The fastest pony in Equestria of Firefly. She is the pink and fearless danger of her life. She is Lauren's favorite pony. And so all the ponies lived together in wonderful land where animals talked, magic was real, no blood or anything like happened that magic couldn't fix.
What's up, my pretties? It's the Lion Queen here. I want to appreciate you all for tuning into this video, and I do appreciate you guys supporting my video by giving this video likes and stuff. If you really enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe if you're new, ring the bell for notifications to when I upload so that way you guys will get updated for whenever I upload. If you want to follow me on Twitter or DeviantArt, feel free to leave a follow on those if you are interested in following me on those socials. If you want to support my backup channel, known as Miss Dark Shigo, feel free to subscribe to it, as a link to that will also be in the About page section. And with that being said, and that being the case, thank you so much for watching, my pretties, and as always, stay pretty.